your accounts and you come in you look in your notifications.
All right.
Hey everybody.
Maybe I'll mute my mic to do it.
I can mute you, or you can mute you.
Well, so it's just gonna come up in
Hey everybody. Somebody's got it open now. I can mute you, or you.
I didn't do nothing.
Yeah, no.
Okay, let me just put the comment up there. So if anybody's watching, we're going to officially start at 7:05, and we're just going to kind of give everybody a chance to get here and chat a little bit. We have the esteemed doctor here, as well as the esteemed drum legend and little old me. So I'm going to go now, and I'm going to look for the live stream so that I can tag both of you guys. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but in all these weeks, I haven't found it. Okay, so if you guys want to check your notifications, you'll see the tag. I'm gonna do some sharing as well. So,
Dan, I'm confused again. Where am I going to find this link?
Okay, just go to where you would normally check your Facebook notifications, or I can probably just even send it to you in a message. Would that be better?
Whatever's clever, man.
I got you, Michael. Here, click the link that I just sent you and then share that video, and then all of your people will be able to see it.
All right. Okay.
So I'm going to do some sharing as well. Let's see, we got any comments yet? Somebody comment so we know that there's people there.
There's 11. Somebody commented?
Whatever's clever, man. Oh, there it is.
I got you, Michael.
All right, I see.
Here.
That's it.
Click the link that I just sent you and then share that video, and then all of your people will.
All right.
Okay, good. We're going to give everybody till 7:05 to get here. So I guess I'm going to do some more sharing. But if you guys want to chat while I do that, you got some ginger beer there? Is that what that is?
Bermuda Stone.
Oh, yes. I love it.
Can't get that around these parts.
Nope.
Really? They do sell it in the States. Oh, it's the Gosling's one. It's a different brand, but it's Bermudian as well.
All right.
Yeah, I think so.
We got some people coming in here.
Yeah.
We got some folks commenting. So we're not alone.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'm going to share this one. And I got one more to share. And then I'll be done with my side of the promotion, at least for now.
It's a bit delayed on my phone.
Yeah, that's just the nature of it. I don't think there's any way around that.
Okay. It's kind of weird to see what I was doing like 15 seconds ago.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm going to share this. Hopefully mine doesn't do the thing. Share. Okay, I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to share it to a group. I think I have a way to do that.
I'm sharing my WhatsApp and then my Facebook story.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I did it in my stories as well. We still got another 5 minutes just to get people a chance here. We got Todd's here. I love Todd. Jessie's here. She gave us some great input in one of the last ones. So did Stephanie Nelson, who I know is I believe a guitar player, and I know a big Prince fan. Yeah, we got some people coming in. So I'm going to close all my other windows now so I don't have any distractions. So before we start the official discussion, just because this is brand new, so just kind of like, so you you worked at your lab today, and again, we'll tell people who you are and what your lab is and all that later. But you were at what time? Yeah,
I went to my Facebook to see if anything popped up. I don't see anything.
Let me go look. I'll check. Which one did you share it from?
I have no idea.
Okay. No, I don't see it either.
Yeah, okay.
So just go to check.
Well, go back to, you're talking about the link. You sent the literally the link above the picture.
That's what.
DSpiffy/videos 1015.
Click that link and it should open, and then share and share it.
Okay, it's going straight to it okay, I got you. I think I know.
I'll wait with you to make sure it gets shared.
Yeah.
So what time did your day start, Carika?
Okay, I think we got it now.
Usually
I got my sound turned off if you're talking to me.
Usually I start later in the day, like around. Right. I'll probably wake up at 10, answer some phone calls and emails, and then get into the lab around 1. But today I had to be at a meeting at 9. I'm not a morning person, so.
No, wait. Michael, just so you know, you successfully shared it from your smaller profile, but if you want to do the bigger profile, or is that going to be too complicated?
I don't know what's going to be too complicated. Well, let me try. I mean, we want the people to see what's going on. So maybe I should just go back to it and share to my other.
Well, you don't want to share it to your other. You want to share it from your other. So you want to be logged in as the profile that has the picture of you and Kim.
All right, here, let me try this.
So Todd's here, Nelson's here, Melody's here, Jay's here, Lynn's here from the Soul Asylum group. Let's see here.
Now what do we see?
Let's see. No, it hasn't happened yet.
Maybe you got to refresh to see it.
My Facebook is.
No, I'm checking my notifications. So I just I'm gonna tag you again, and then you can just follow the tag if maybe that worked the first time. Don't worry, this will get underway soon. We just have to be patient.
I'm having one of many senior moments.
Did you see that? Did you see that tag pop up, Michael?
Where would I have seen it?
In your notifications. If you go to your notifications.
Dan Spiffy Neuman mentioned you in a comment.
Right. So follow that and then go to that post and click share.
All right.
Okay, soon. We just have to be patient.
I'm having one of many senior moments. Yeah, where would I have seen it?
In your notification. You shared it again, but just still from the other profile, still from the smaller profile. So I don't know how you're logged in as one, but not the other one. I don't know how that works on your end. So.
All right.
You want to try again, or you want to just go forward?
No, I got to sort this out.
Okay, let's sort it out. So you're doing it
completely off Facebook now.
Okay. Just log in as the one with you and Kim.
I thought I was doing that. I was using the account switcher and everything. All right.
And then just follow that same notification or that same link and share it just like you did.
Okay. Hold on.
And everybody, let's just be patient. We're trying to make sure that everybody can watch.
All right. I thought I was doing that. I was using the account switcher and everything.
Okay.
Share now. All right.
And then just follow that same notification. Yeah, there we go. We're in. We're in, ladies and gentlemen. Michael has successfully shared to both of his profiles. So, and that just gives me the perfect opportunity to introduce my co-host, one of my favorite people in the entire world, which is no secret to anybody that watches these, one of the smartest, Facebook notwithstanding, people that I know.
You got white people hating me all over for saying all
that. One of the world's most credentialed musicians, and one of the world's best musicians, because those two things don't always go hand in hand. I was a fan of him before I met him, and I'm a bigger fan now that I know him. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Bland.
Hey.
So, I tossed to Michael.
Oh, he hails from Madison, Wisconsin. They're known by everybody, from coast to coast. He'll fix your ceiling fan and the lights too. He'll and you know what else? He'll deliver you on the organ at the same time. He'll fix the lights and then go to the organ and tear the organ up there down at the church. They see Spiffy Neuman coming and they say, please don't let that white boy tear up the organ this Sunday morning. Amen.
Amen.
Spiffy Neuman, ladies and gentlemen. Now please introduce your friend, our illustrious guest.
So this is a first time for Michael and I, because we have a guest on that neither of us knows personally, although I already feel like she's a friend of ours. I put the radar out because I wanted specifically, Michael and I had talked about wanting to do a episode on COVID-19 and or episodes plural, and I wanted to specifically talk to both some doctors who have dealt with it, as well as some scientists and researchers. And I really wanted, it wasn't necessarily a deal breaker, but I really wanted to find a Black COVID-19 researcher, because I feel like with everything that's going on in the world right now, we need to be elevating Black excellence and Black voices. Well, and I put the word out to the people that I know, and one of my friends said, I have somebody that is just perfect. Like, she's amazing. This is what she does. And I think she'd be very interested in doing it. And I read her resume and I said, oh my God, if she agrees to do this, this is huge for us. Because I'm looking at scientific journals and universities and everything. And I reached out to her on Facebook and she agreed. So I'm very excited to see what we're going to learn today. Dr. Carika Weldon, originally from Bermuda.
Yes, born and raised.
All right.
And currently in Bermuda, but also of Oxford University, which is where?
In England.
Okay. So since I can't give you a proper bio and introduction, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little history?
Okay. So are they going to play a song? Was that a keyboard?
No, that was my computer going ding.
Oh, I thought you were going to start playing like background music.
No, we're not that fancy here. We're not that fancy here.
So I was born and raised in Bermuda, and Bermuda, for those who are listening who may not know, is not a triangle. It is a country. It is just off of the east coast of the States, about 400 miles east of North Carolina. And so I was born and raised and left when I was 18 to go to university. There are no universities in Bermuda, so everyone who wants to go to university has to leave the country. So I went to England initially to do my undergraduate, had a mindset to do medicine, but I initially now studied medical biochemistry, which is more on the sciencey part of it, and loved it. So I then did my PhD in biochemistry, and I then went straight into becoming a professor in the university, so teaching in university for 3 years, biomedical science. And not long ago, so about a year and a half ago now, I then moved over to Oxford. So I left teaching and went back into full-time research. And so I was there up until March, and then I got contacted by Bermuda asking, can I come back to help set up a new government COVID-19 testing lab, and I said yes. And so I've been here for the last 2.5 months.
So you specifically, they sought you out to come back to Bermuda, to help with COVID-19.
Exactly.
I'm
in my room, just enjoying being on lockdown in Oxford, just working from home. And then I was asked if I could come back to help. And I thought, this would be a good time to help my country. One thing that's unique about Bermuda is that we actually have a lot of scholarships. Like, there's so many scholarships to go to school that some of them are never even used. And so for myself, I had 2 scholarships, one for my undergraduate. I had one, and then it was a full scholarship, and then one for my PhD as well. And I just thought this would be, like, what better way could I give back to my country and use my degrees than during a pandemic, where the testing is literally what I've been doing the last 10 years.
So was COVID-19, were you working on anything pertaining to COVID-19 prior to getting the call from Bermuda, or was that?
So no. So prior to this year, I came to Bermuda. Actually, I also have a science foundation or a charity that I started in Bermuda that does science outreach. And so we had our conference, which is an annual conference that happens every year. We bring about 100 scientists to the island to talk about the latest research. And we also have an outreach component to it. We go around to all the schools and do hands-on DNA workshops. So that was middle of February. I got back to England. I was there at work for maybe like a few weeks. And then I had gone on holiday to Nigeria, actually. My partner is there. So I went on holiday to see him. And then that's when it just like went crazy. So I was actually on holiday when it all kind of kicked off. And whilst I was there, I had reached out when I flew into Nigeria, they were really like on point with how they handled you coming off the plane. Like, you didn't just walk off and that's it. Like, they had a form you had to fill out to say where you had been. They had a big screen that checked your temperature. Like, it was really nice. So I was like, this is really awesome. Like, Bermuda needs to do this. So I took pictures and sent it to those in Bermuda and said, look, I think we should do this. And then they implemented that like 2 days later in Bermuda. I was like, ooh, okay, this is good. At least Bermuda's getting on track. But I had no intention of coming back to Bermuda. I thought I was just doing my part to share that information. And I was in Nigeria for like about 10 days. And then came back to England and did my obviously 2 weeks quarantine, chilling at home. And on day 5, I think, of that's when I was contacted.
So you already had a relationship with the government of Bermuda because you're telling them what to do in terms of how to handle the pandemic, and you're not even living there yet. Right.
So, I mean, because of all the outreach that I do, I have already worked with various departments of government. So, for example, with the outreach, I work with the Ministry of Education because we go into all of the public government schools and do this outreach. For the conference, we also have a gala at the end, which kind of like is the big hoorah and is a good time to share Bermuda culture. So I work with the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. And our premier in Bermuda is actually the youngest premier we've ever had. I think when he took office, he was under 40. And so he's very supportive of young Black Bermudians. And so he was very open to my comments, obviously being a scientist and this being an RNA virus. And he knows, because he's opened up some of my conferences, that I'm an RNA scientist. So he kind of looked to me for some advice in the early days. And now I am officially the science advisor to the premier.
Okay, so I didn't even know that. I would have put that on the promotion for this. You're the science advisor to the government of Bermuda.
Yes. It's strange to say, but that is literally I'm still getting used to it myself. It's kind of like a whirlwind of events that's happened this year.
Wow.
Well, I can imagine. Wow. And Michael will jump in anytime he has something to say too.
Yeah.
Right now I'm taking it all in.
Yeah. So when was the first that as a scientist and as a researcher, when did you first hear about COVID-19 and what did you think?
So it was back in January, actually. And this was because I was having my conference. and it's an international conference. And we had a speaker on the list who was supposed to be coming from China. And so I kind of saw what was happening, and I was like, I don't know if she should still come, because from China to Bermuda is quite far. And I didn't know exactly which part of the country she was in. And so, yeah, this was probably the last week of January. I reached out to her because she was supposed to come with her daughter as well. They were all excited. And she said, you know what, she's decided to stay in Beijing, because she just thinks it wouldn't be safe to travel at that time. And so she didn't come to the conference being like the first week of February. And I remember at the conference, we had a scientist from Australia, and we jokingly said, oh, we should just test everyone at the conference, like, because this is something that we normally do as RNA scientists, like to design a PCR experiment to look for a target. This is what we do on a regular basis. And we just jokingly said it. And then literally 6 weeks later, I was back in Bermuda leading COVID-19 testing. I was like, this is crazy. It's actually nuts.
Oh.
So I'm trying not to jump too far ahead.
Yeah.
I have so many questions, but they all are like going further into. So in January, you're hearing about it.
Yeah.
Never mind, the perspective that we're getting from, at that point, it's not even hardly in the media at that point.
Right. It wasn't like, it was just like, oh, look at that thing over there in China. Oh, here we go again. And, obviously before we've gone through Ebola, we've heard about SARS, and it was always like you knew it was happening somewhere else, but you knew, you never thought it was going to reach you. So that's literally how it felt and how it started. And I think, if you would have asked anyone at that conference that we had in February, if they saw what coming, they would have laughed in your face and said, of course not. No way. It's going to stay there. So I think, when I first heard of it, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit like, what's this? But as it started to travel across, I was just like, what is going on here? I was shocked.
So when did you have the realization that it was going to become a global pandemic, or at least something that was more than just a few isolated countries?
Right. I think once it hit Italy, because I think it was obviously in the East, and then all of a sudden, Italy was like the new epicenter. It was like, hold on, what just happened? Like, how did it get from over there to here? Because now I live in England, remember? So Italy's very close to where I am. So I'm like, what's this? This is not what I expected. And so that's when I became a bit more aware. And I have a coworker who's actually Italian as well, and her sister. So she's a scientist. And her sister is a medical doctor who lives in the north of Italy. So she was right in the deep of it as well. And she was telling me how concerned she was for her family and what was going on. But again, still, I even at that point, didn't think that it was even going to pass Italy. I don't know why. You just think, it's not going to reach here. But clearly, obviously, people fly so much around Europe that it was going to reach us at some point.
Sure.
I was waiting to see if Michael was going to say something.
No.
Okay. So remind me the date that it was that you got called back to Bermuda to.
Oh, I remember very clearly. It was the 29th of March. I was actually that week. So like I said, I was in Nigeria before, and the day I reached Nigeria, because at the time in England, before I left, it was steadily going up, and we had 1 or 2 deaths. It was the early part of deaths, and it didn't seem like it was going to be that bad. And again, people were kind of skeptic about what's going on, and it was more people flying in from obviously other European countries that were bringing it, and you just didn't think it was going to spread. And I actually remember I had gotten the train from Oxford to Reading to go to do something, and that day was a death in Reading. I was like, oh my God, okay, it's actually coming, and so I actually flew. I think I flew to Nigeria on the 13th of March, and that day when I landed, because it was an overnight flight, when I landed, in Nigeria, they didn't have any more COVID-19. They had one person that flew in from Italy, and they were in the other city. Not the city I was in, and they then caught it, and there was someone else who got it from them, but they were the only two in the country, and then they had recovered. So it was like, I remember landing, and it was like, I'm in the best place I could be. Like, there's no COVID-19 here. Yay! Yeah. By the time I left, there was like 20-something cases, and it was like exponentially going. So I was like, no.
Oh, wow.
So just to give some context, at that time, where was it worse? In the UK, where you were currently studying, or not studying, but or
when I left England on the 13th of March, it was like everyone was talking about it. It was on the radio, everywhere you turn. Like, it was like, oh my God, COVID-19, COVID-19. But it was because it was such a hype about it. But the numbers weren't that bad yet. And it was like, okay, the conversation was, are we gonna close like Italy? Because remember, Italy like shut down everything from early on. And it was like, oh, is that gonna happen to us? Are we gonna do the same thing? That was the conversation when I left England. When I got back to England, like less than 2 weeks later, it was like lockdown. That's literally what happened.
But how does Bermuda, at least at that time, how did Bermuda compare to England?
Right. So obviously Bermuda, we're like further west. We're an isolated little island. You can only get to us from the UK, from Canada, and from the US. So obviously at that point, and I want to say in like March, late February, you had cases in all those countries, but the likelihood that someone had flown to Bermuda with it was a bit low. I know in March 4th, I believe, if I remember the date correct, that was the first time someone had actually been diagnosed. No, they had been diagnosed with being positive. The first person had come on a flight on March 4th. So they were swabbed like a few days later. At the time, we didn't have testing for COVID-19 on island in Bermuda because it's not, like, Bermuda's not really known for science. It's not something that we do. We don't have research. We don't have university. So there wasn't an immediate like, oh, we can just do COVID-19 testing right now. So initially, we were sending them to Trinidad and Tobago. And that sounds like it's not far. But if you imagine, we're like up near North Carolina and Trinidad's down way below Florida. Like, it took some time. So we had to ship our samples somewhere else to CARFA, which is the Caribbean kind of like reference lab. And yeah, we were getting results back in 5 to 6 days, which trying to manage a pandemic, not ideal, you know, with a 5-6 day delay after you've already waited for someone to have symptoms. And so it wasn't bad in Bermuda, but it was like, oh my goodness, like we don't have the tools to like just manage this. Because if we can't test ourselves and we have to wait 5-6 days, how are we going to manage?
Okay, so here I meant to go here earlier and I forgot. So let's assume that somebody has been asleep for the past 6 months, or they just landed on planet Earth. Yeah. Explain from your science perspective, in layman's terms, but from a scientist's perspective. Yeah. What is COVID-19?
Okay, so COVID-19 is actually the name of the disease that is caused by this virus that is new. It's not new because it's the first of its kind. So, for example, your last name is Neuman. My last name is Weldon. I don't know your last name.
Oh, Bland. Bland.
Oh, Bland, right. I was like, it's not man. So Bland, right? We all come from our families, right? So there are many Weldons, there are many Blands, there are many Neumans. We're all related, but we're not the same person. Viruses are the same. They come from same families. And the families, we all share similar DNA, right? We're all kind of genetically similar. And so this virus is actually kind of like a first cousin, as it were, to the SARS virus. So the one that causes SARS. It's genetically different enough to be something different, but it's very similar. So this virus emerged seemingly towards the end of 2019, in China. And we suspect that what happened was it came from bats to humans. And that's something that happens quite often, actually. The virus actually changes it slightly genetically, and then it allows it to actually be transmissible in humans. But this virus is slightly different because we've had SARS, we've had Ebola, and the difference is that Ebola was way more deadly. Like, it would kill you most times if you had it, but it didn't spread unless you were really sick. So you could not be contagious unless you were like basically on your deathbed dying, right? And so the amount of people that were spreading it was low and was able to be contained in West Africa. SARS, again, not as deadly as Ebola, but it didn't spread that far. You had MERS, is another cousin of coronavirus, but all of the other ones never, like, it was almost like a Mexican wave. Like, we had a Mexican wave of this virus. It was whoosh, whole planet. That's never happened before. And so that's why COVID-19 is like the word that everyone says every day, because it literally is, it's transmissible. You can give it to someone and not even know you have it. And so here we are.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to go there now or save this for later. There was somebody in the comments that wanted to address the theory that it's man-made. Do you want to talk about? You want to talk about that now or talk about that later?
I can address it now. A lot of people have asked me that, like, how I felt about it, and I'm kind of conflicted. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a bit conflicted because with my just general logic hat, if I was to say I have that on, I'm confused how such a thing has just wiped out the country, like the whole, I can't even say country, the whole world so quickly, and like shut everyone down. Like, the health impact, the economic impact, the social impact is crazy. That something that you can't see, I know it's a virus, has just done this to us. And personally, based off of some evidence I saw, meaning I was looking at some timelines of things that were announced, I'm a bit suspicious about what really happened. But I don't have any facts. So what's that?
I said, all right.
Yeah, I don't have any facts on it. But I mean, my thing is, you can't announce you're going to donate money to contain a virus somewhere when it hasn't reached that continent yet. I don't understand how that happened. Basically, the Bill Gates Foundation made an announcement, like, I think 10 days prior to it ever reaching Africa, that they were donating money to contain it in Africa. And like, but it hasn't reached there yet. So why are you donating money? So these things make you go, what was the intention? But other than that, I think I haven't seen any data to me that suggests it was man-made. But I know for a fact this is going to become a Netflix documentary, and I'm waiting to see it. I can't wait.
You can't. We might be in it.
I mean, I'm not a scientist or a philanthropist. It makes sense to me personally that if I can see that this is going to be a worldwide thing, and I might say, okay, we need to preemptively put resources here and here and here. So it doesn't raise a red flag to me to say let's donate money to this country and that country even before it reaches there, because we want to make sure that if and when it does, the infrastructure and the money is in place. But again, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess so, because I think I don't know. I'm still, like I said, I'm still on the fence with it. I just need to see the whole big picture. I'm not sure. To me, it was a bit weird. Like, if it hasn't reached this continent, why all that money towards containing it? And then it was a lot of people like, oh, why hasn't this hit Africa as bad? Like, why are you sad about it?
There was,
you know why?
Not enough. Like, leave us alone.
You know why?
That reminds me that there were some theories floating around the internet at the beginning that it didn't reach Africa because Black people were immune.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that.
I remember. I think there was a post as well on Facebook, and someone had said, like, why is it that like Black people would be immune? And so they were saying like, oh, it's because of the hair grease you grew up on. It's because it was I literally sat up dying laughing all night because they were talking about things like when we grew up, like this weird stuff that we had to do. And that was like the reason why you were supposedly immune. But yeah, that obviously is not.
I didn't see that one. The ones that I saw were all basing it on genetics, but it was not, it was not genetic scientists that were making the claims.
Yeah, it was definitely never the case.
So, okay. So,
would it be possible? Can something like that be man-made?
Yes.
Okay.
Meaning, I'll justify that because I know on one hand, I feel like again I'm splitting two because I love Marvel movies. I actually love them, and I love all these types of shows. But they really make scientists look bad. Like the scientist is always the villain, like creating this crazy thing that kills the. Like, I'm tired of that. So Marvel, if you're watching, please sort that out. But, I mean, I think they kind of tried with Shuri, so I'll give them that. She was a good scientist. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, I know in the lab, when we do like simple techniques to not even study viruses, but to look at other types of basic science, we use already existing mechanisms in other live organisms. So viruses, bacteria, all of that, we know how to manipulate their genetic material because of that. And so I know how to do that myself. You have CRISPR. I think a lot of people have heard about that. And it's the ability to just go to a direct place in the genome or into the DNA and change it a way that you want. And this is stuff that is already known. This is like decades after it was discovered in a lab. So what stuff do we not know that people are able to do because they haven't told us yet? So I mean, I'm kind of on both sides. It's kind of like with me and medicine, like drugs. Like, okay, I know they work, but I know that they also don't because you have side effects. So I'm kind of on the fence. I don't like taking pills for that reason. I'm like on the fence. I'm on the fence with a lot of stuff. Yeah. So for this one, I mean, it could be, and that's why it is possible to try to prove it is or isn't based off of certain tests that you could do. But I honestly, and this is just my opinion. This is not because I'm a scientist, but I personally feel there's going to be a lot of information revealed in a documentary, maybe like 10 years from now, and I can't wait to watch that.
Okay.
So another scientist friend told me, and I may be butchering this information, that basically viruses have specific genetic markers, and if it was made or mutated in a lab, then there would be certain genetic markers that you would be able to see. Am I understanding and relating that?
Yes, but also we also know how to add or take away those genetic markers as well, because we know that they're there. So I don't know. I don't want to say it either way because I just have this weird feeling that this is more than what we think because of what happened, and I can't shake that feeling, to be very honest.
Me neither.
I can't.
So if I were to summarize, basically. The science doesn't prove one way or the other. The best knowledge that we have right now is that it occurred naturally, but you as a scientist have a gut feeling based on your knowledge and experience as a scientist that there's more to it that we don't have the evidence of.
It's just, it doesn't really fit right. It doesn't sit right with me, like how this has kind of happened. Is it just that we just magically entered a pandemic? And I think the other thing is that because it was talk about pandemic leading up to this, I don't know, it was just strange. Like, oh, in 5 years you might have a pandemic, and then in 5 years you have a pandemic. It's just like, how did you know that number? Like, did you plan this? And I know there's the plandemic. I know that's been a catchphrase.
That's
said, right. But I don't know. I can't sit here today and say with my whole heart that no, I think it would just naturally occur. I can't do that. So I'm still open to the fact that it might not be. But there is a paper that there is published research to prove that it wasn't made in a lab. But it's just, okay, do you take that as true or not?
Right.
And that's
right. Any study can be moved a little this way or that way.
Exactly.
Based on who funded it. So I got
exactly. So I mean, and that's the other thing. So now I think a lot more of the non-scientists in the world can see exactly how science kind of works, because you have data, people are publishing it, and people are getting fast-tracked because it's a pandemic, of course. But then, like, just because it's in a certain journal, everyone's like, oh, this is the truth. And it's like, relax. Just because something is published doesn't mean it's true. The amount of times that people who publish stuff in journals have had to retract, or there's another group of scientists that proves the opposite, happens all the time. So I think, it's just about making sure you are always skeptic. And I think my own PhD supervisor, who I'll give a shout out to, he's not here on Facebook, but Professor Ian Apperon from University of Leicester, he was always very skeptic. Like, even a year and a half into my PhD project that he gave me, he didn't believe my results until I had like enough data. So yeah, he put that, instilled that, like, okay, always ask more questions into me. And so I'm still just asking questions. That's all. That's
great. I think that's probably your main job, is it not?
Exactly. Yeah.
Science. Ask questions.
So let's backtrack again, because there's other questions on the comments that I want to get to eventually, but I want to kind of cover some more ground first. So your lab in the Bahamas, they brought you there. I'm sorry. Yes, your lab in Bermuda.
Yeah.
Any place warm.
Yeah.
They brought you there specifically to handle the country's COVID-19 testing, as well as to formulate the country's response to the pandemic. Is that what you would say?
I didn't put that much on my name. So what I was brought back to do was, because as far as an RNA science, because the virus has genetic material, and it could be either DNA or, and I wore this t-shirt for a reason, RNA. Right, so DNA and RNA are similar, but they are they're chemically different. An RNA virus is like HIV, and thank you. An RNA virus or DNA virus, they're two different kind of, like, again, families. And with RNA, it's handled slightly different. And with the government knowing that I'm an RNA scientist, I've been doing this for the last 10 years, and I know how to do the testing. That's why I was initially brought back to just come and start another lab to do testing, because we want to obviously be able to test. That's the main catchphrase of the year, really test. And we had one lab at the time doing the testing, and which was awesome. I think the couple days after the pandemic was even announced, we in Bermuda had on-island testing, so that was already in place. But we just wanted to have more, to expand it. So that was my main job. When I got on the plane on April 6th, my job was to come and do the testing. I thought I was going to be in the lab. That's it. Then when I got here, it transformed into being the science advisor. And I was told, okay, we also need a drive-through for people to come and get tested, like the swabbing part of it. And I was like, okay. So I had to visualize and conceptualize that and put that into play. So we actually... I was in quarantine as well. Wow. For 2 weeks in one room for 2 weeks. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. A government quarantine facility where you had security outside your door and you couldn't leave at all. And it was nice though, because you had food delivered I would wake up to breakfast. That was awesome. But everything else, not nice. In the same room. It was a nice view, of course, but yeah, just drives you nuts to be in the same room. But yeah, in that place, when I came out that weekend, we then opened testing up to all essential workers to then come free to get tested. So all the testing that happens in the lab is no one in Bermuda is charged for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's a big one in Bermuda, because in Bermuda, I guess it's kind of similar to the States. You guys have private insurance, or it's not like England where you have the NHS.
Wow.
Well, that would take, if you're not familiar with our healthcare system, that would take a long time to explain, because it's what we would call a clusterfuck. It's a lot better. Most people have private insurance. Some people have no insurance, and if you qualify, you can get Medicaid or Medicare, which is essentially. But just having private insurance is no guarantee that you're not paying astronomical amounts for medical care here. It's a pretty terrible system. And
probably similar to that. It's definitely not the UK, because I obviously live in England. And the UK is NHS, and you can freely go. And but for Bermuda, it's not like that. And so for people to know, I've had many people say, I want to get tested, but I don't have the insurance, so I can't pay. It's free. Just come. And they're like, really? Wow. So that just eased like the whole country, that they could literally wake up and go and get tested if they felt like they should.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, for me, in my opinion, the UK and the US, sadly, that's where they dropped the ball, because people just want to know. Like, we don't like to not know stuff. People just like to know if we're good, if we're bad. And the fact that people can't get tested as they should, I think that's part of the failings, in my opinion, of both of those countries.
Well,
yeah. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who just moved to England, actually, within the first few days, he felt sick, and he went to the hospital, and they thought he might have to have his pancreas taken out, but it turned out he didn't. But I was like, man, how much did that cost? He's like, nothing. They didn't charge.
Right, exactly.
Years ago, a friend of mine had something happened, like a tooth fell out or something, like something happened with his mouth, and he went in and he was like, well, how much is this going to cost? The doctors were laughing at him.
Right. It's a totally different concept. Yeah.
Yeah. If something wrong, go get it fixed. They handle it. Exactly. It's incredible.
So something you said, I both wanted to segue into a different thing and kind of wanted to bring up a question that was at the same time. So talking about the testing process, and then talking about how people want to know and people want to get tested. There are a lot of people here in the U.S. That don't trust the testing process. I've seen people that I know personally post on Facebook that they're scared they're going to get implanted with a microchip when they get tested for COVID-19, or that the test actually means they're going to be injected with COVID-19, or that I've all kinds of conspiracy theories about why not to get tested. And so I wanted to bring that up in response to your whole thing about everybody wanting to get tested. But then I also want to segue into a question is, can you walk us through the testing process that you actually go through, both in terms of what you deal with people, as well as in what you actually do as a scientist? Right.
Okay. So I can't speak for the U.S. because I don't know what you guys are doing.
We don't know what we're doing either.
But I do know that in Bermuda, in general, what happens is you get a swab. So there's two parts. The first part is actually collecting the sample, right? So you need to go way down in the back. It's actually way back here, the nasopharyngeal region of your head. And you have to go through your nose to get there. You can also get there from your mouth, but obviously not as comfortable. Neither are very nice, but it's a bit easier to get there from your nose. So they take the swab down into that region and they just twist around and then they bring it out. Now the swabs are sterile. They're nothing's on them. I've never seen any chips on them, so I'm not sure about that part. But I don't know what you're making over there in the States. But the ones we use don't have any chips on them.
Oh boy, she's making the distinction, boy.
And then when that comes out, they put it into a media or like a liquid that will stabilize and allow the virus, if it is there, to grow so that we can actually kind of detect it. And so then we take that sample. It usually has to go on ice because the virus is, remember, RNA virus, and RNA is very fragile. So you have to have it on ice. It comes to us in the lab. And what I would do, I would take the sample under a hood, and there's a shield. I have all the PPE, you know, the gown, the hairnet, the everything. And yes, I'll talk about that.
Keep talking. Yeah.
I can't multitask. And then I would then take some of that media or the liquid, and what we do is we have to then, if there is a virus in there, we need to bust it open so we can get to the genetic material, right? Now, the technical term for that is lyse or lysis. And so we then do an extraction. So we're like extracting out the genetic material, and in this case, it's the RNA from the virus if it's there. What we also always do is we have like our RNA that's in a tube. It's not the virus RNA. Don't worry. It's just made in a lab. So that's what I'm saying. It's not the virus though. It's just another type of RNA. And we put that in to make sure that the extraction process works. Once that comes out, now we have pure RNA from your sample. And then the last step to it is we then put it into a reaction which will make more copies if it's there. So it's called PCR, polymerase chain reaction. Basically, if you have the RNA, it will convert it into DNA first. And if it has DNA in there, it will have one copy, then it will make two. Two will make four. Four will make eight. 8 makes 16, and so on and so on. So it's exponential. And the cool part about it is that in this reaction, there are fluorescent probes. So they emit colors. So the machine that you use actually detects what colors are coming out. Because every time you have more and more and more DNA, more of the probe binds to it and gives a color. Mm-hmm. And so that is what we're detecting. We're seeing over the time, we do about 45 of these cycles. So it does it 45 times of this amplification process. Over that time, do you have that exponential increase of fluorescence, which means that there's more and more DNA in there. And if there's any DNA in the first place, it means you had the virus.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put a few of these follow-up questions on the screen now, just because they're dealing with what you're specifically talking about.
Yeah. So we do, at the moment, we have all the samples in Bermuda that are tested by the government come to us. And so today was a slow day. That's why I'm able to be here tonight. But to say, for example, on Saturday, we had samples from, I think, 5 different locations. And we have couriers that pick them up and bring them to us. Now, Bermuda's not that big. We're only like 21 square miles, so it's not too far. So does the virus die or not? So if it's not exactly, thank you, Heather. I like your questions. It is a risk that if you do not transport the sample correctly, that you could what we call degrade, which is the RNA would just break up, and then you won't be able to detect it. So it's very important when you are taking these swabs that they are transferred correctly, because you would get a false negative. And that's actually something we have to say on our report. If you get a negative result, we have to say a negative result does not mean you've never been infected. You could have a negative result for these amount of reasons, and we list them. That's from WHO, and that's one of them. So saliva testing is something that actually in Bermuda we're starting as soon as we get our kits on island, which should be this week. So we did some validations of this last week. And I know in the US, you guys have a few FDA, EUA approved saliva protocols. And basically if you think about it, right, logically, looking for my mask, we have to go outside and wear a mask, right? Why?
Are you opening it up to for us to answer?
Yeah, you too, yeah.
So you have to wear a mask when you go outside?
Yeah, so in Bermuda you do. If you go
because the virus transmits through your saliva, and so if I accidentally spit on something that you touch, and then
right. So it's coming through your mouth because it's coming through droplets, right? So if you think about it, if we can swab your mouth, if you have it, we should be able to pick it up. Because the thing I didn't mention is that the PCR test can literally detect if you have a few strands of the virus in there. It's that sensitive.
So go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
The saliva test that we're going to start doing in Bermuda is actually using a mouth swab. Ooh, one moment.
We got props.
I have a picture. Oops. Oh gosh. Yeah, there we go.
Giving her enough room.
There's a how do I do that? I got to figure out a way to do that.
Get her,
no, that's just me.
Yeah, that's you. Now just do the same thing for her.
I'm trying to figure it out. There's a way to make her the only person, and I don't know what it is. So now I want. There we go.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So this is just like that's what it looks like basically. So it comes in a contain like a package. You open that up and you swab your mouth with this sponge.
Uh-huh.
And then you take the lid off and then you put it into the liquid. Oh, there we go. And then that's it. So swab, put it in, bang.
So getting back to the test that most of us have had, or I don't know if most of us have had, but that the most common test with the nasal swab that goes back into the back of your skull. How accurate is that test?
I get that question a lot. So the standard, numbers on it is that it's about 70% accurate.
And
30% of the time you're missing it. And so that is obviously something we have to consider. And so if someone does get a negative result, that's again why on the report, we don't just say, oh, not detected, well done, go about your business. No, we have to say you have a negative, but it doesn't necessarily mean you don't have the virus, because it could be it wasn't transported correctly. It could be they didn't get in the right position. It could be that they didn't get enough of your sound, like of your material in there. It could be that it was too early because maybe there wasn't enough virus in your system yet. It could be too late because the virus is already being beaten by your immune system. So literally, like, the GIF, I think it's on Facebook as well, where you have like the chicken running through the outline and you have to like catch it at the right. You've never seen that?
We don't have that in the United States.
We probably do. Michael and I are too old. It's probably what it is.
Yeah.
So there's this thing where you have like a GIF. You know what a GIF is, right?
Yes. We're not that old.
So you have a GIF and there's an outline of a chicken, and then you have like the GIF is the chicken running that way over and over, and you have to try to like take a screenshot at the right time where the chicken's in the outline.
Anyone in the comments, have you seen this chicken GIF? Because Charles Hayes.
Charles Hayes lived up there.
Exactly. You guys just don't know.
I know what you meant, Charles. It's all right.
Yeah. So
that's like it's almost like you have to catch it at the right time, otherwise you've missed it. And so exactly. Please tell them. So yeah, that's what it's like with the test. So it's not necessarily that the actual swab itself is the problem or the PCR test is the problem. It's more about the right time of the sample being taken that is the problem as well. So the PCR side, so the part in the lab, that will pick it up. If it's there, we'll get it. But it's about the sample, was it taken at the right time and in the right place?
Mm-hmm. I get that.
Do we know yet how accurate the saliva test is?
So I was looking into that last night. So it seems like it's basically comparable to the nasopharyngeal swab, which is why if you have the option of either one, if they're both as equally accurate, you'd obviously choose the mouth one, right? Because there's less invasive. And so that's why in Bermuda, we're looking to implement that for mass screening, like myself, I obviously work with samples every day. And so I personally have been assaulted in my nostril 5 times.
It's funny because everybody talks about how bad it is. When I had it, it didn't bother me, but I was also like almost literally on my deathbed. So anything that could have been respite,
that was like, but I mean, for me, I remember the first time I had it, because what I did when I arrived, remember I said I was in quarantine. I said, okay, I need us to start testing people to release them from the government quarantine. Like, we should be making sure everyone's negative before we let them out, right? And so I was in that batch because I was not testing it. I was in the lab. I was in the hotel. I had a lab team, and they tested everyone. That was the first time I was swabbed, and I didn't know what was happening. I never even looked at what the test was like, and I just know she kept going and going and going, and I'm like, what? Like, I just was so shell shocked. She came out and said, "Oh, gotta do the other side." I was like, "What?" So she ran back in the other nostril as well. Oh my God. Yeah.
But just to be clear, if the saliva test isn't available yet and somebody's on the fence about getting tested, even though
it's not that bad. You just need to relax. Just relax. I've gotten better at it. The last time I did it was actually better. I had to relax. Because sometimes you don't know you're tense when you until you relax. And I felt the difference. So it's not horrible. It's just not something you'd want to do like on a regular basis. So that's why for mass screening, we want to switch over to saliva, because then at least you don't have to go do that so often. And yes, to the question on the screen, in Bermuda, we have already done and started antibody testing of the general population. We have used the finger prick test. So just a finger prick, and then we take a bit and put it onto the rapid kit. Takes 10 minutes to see the result. And what we were doing, again, for free, is anyone that came through the drive-through or to any testing were offered the antibody test so they could opt in to take it. They didn't have to if they didn't want to. But everyone wants to. Because you know what I realized? Everyone wants to be in a situation where they've never had symptoms, but they had the virus, so now they have antibodies. Everybody.
Yeah. So this is getting way ahead of ourselves, but you just got there, and somebody asked the question earlier in the comments, and I was going to put it on the screen when we got to that point. So when I was first released from the hospital, they told me, they said, "Congratulations, you can't get it again because you've had it." And then literally one of the doctors from the hospital called me a week later, and they said, "Well, you know what? You when we released you about not being able to get it again, we might not have been right about that, so maybe you should be careful." So you tell so again, as a scientist who studies this, how accurate is it as far as if you have the antibodies, if you've had it before, that you can't get it again, or you can't at least get the same strain again? Or
so I'll talk about 2 different moments that I've looked at this. One was before we started in Bermuda, and I had a chat with actually a U.S. Immunologist who is working with the FDA on testing these different types of rapid antibody tests. And we had a really good chat. He was really helpful, and he said what he's found is actually that he does both tests together more times than any, because if you have the PCR test or the swab plus the antibody, it gives you more information. And what he said is that actually what he found is that, apparently according to him, the 9 index cases in China, only 2 were picked up by the PCR test. But they had antibodies. So obviously a bit later on, they picked it up that they had it by PCR, but the first times they didn't pick it up. But then what he said in his own experience, he had patients coming full symptoms, like you couldn't mistake it for anything else. Test it with the PCR, negative. Test it again, positive. Test it again, negative. Test it again, positive. And then
we lost her.
Whoa.
Her signal or battery must have died or something.
The government trying to keep us from telling the truth, man.
Right. Right.
Yes. See, just because it's a conspiracy theory don't mean they're not out to get you.
Where did
you go, Dr. Carika?
Let me make sure that I have my Facebook open so that if she needs to message me to get back in, she should be able to click the same link. Oh, there she is.
Come on, Dr. Carika. Don't leave it like that. Don't leave it like that.
I don't know what happened.
What happened?
Michael, I'm going to take you off and back on again so you can be in your favorite spot.
All right.
I like the corner.
Yeah,
but so does Michael. So, okay. Continue with what you were saying, Dr. Carika.
Right. So what he was saying is that he realized, and the whole time, because he was testing with the antibodies, right? He tested them with the antibody test at the same time. Each time, from the beginning, all 4 times that person had antibodies. So what it wasn't that they had been reinfected. It was that the PCR test, according to him, was missing it. Because remember, there's a 30% false negative rate.
Right.
So what we found was some people saying, oh, this person was positive, and then they were negative, and then they're positive again, they're reinfected. But at the time, really what it was is that the PCR test was missing it that second time. And it wasn't a reinfection. As far as the antibodies and how long it lasts, I literally just this last couple of days read a paper that was in Nature, and Nature's a really good journal, but again, it's fast tracked, so you have to be, just be critical about it. But they had tested, and this is the first time I've seen a comparison between symptomatic and asymptomatic, so people that don't have symptoms. Now, what they found is that actually those who are symptomatic and were positive actually had more antibodies, which kind of makes sense because your immune system had to do more work to get rid of more of the virus. But then they also found that it only lasts for like 2 to 3 months, and then there was no more antibodies. So people became what they call seronegative. So serology is all about the antibodies. So now they didn't have any antibodies after 2 months. So it seems as though you can get the antibodies after you've been exposed, be protected for a few months, and then it expires.
Okay. So
that's where we are today.
we'll want to, before we're done, and I don't want to jump there now unless you really want to, we'll definitely want to make sure we touch on all the precautions that people need to take and the effectiveness of the different ones and what people should do. Because even here in the U.S., there's debate on masks and things like that. So we'll come back to that. Did you see? I threw a few questions up there. There's one up there right now. If you
how accurate is the antibody test? So the one that we're using is, I think, the 3rd FDA EUA approved test, and in order to get that, they have to be, very good. I think last I checked, the false negative rate was like 2 to 3%. So it's a lot less than the PCR test actually. And as far as, so that's telling someone that they don't have antibodies when they actually do. The rate of telling someone they do have antibodies when they don't was like 1 to 2%. Again, very low. So it's not perfect. No test is 100% accurate. And that's just across the board. But the ones that we're using seem to be, in this case, quite accurate. And we've used in Bermuda, I think as we did like a pilot of like around 1,500 people, bearing in mind Bermuda's only 65,000 people. And we had a rate of about 3% that were coming back with antibodies. And everyone that we had spoken to about it said, okay, well, the doctors obviously spoke to them, followed up. They had been exposed. They were spouses of people that had COVID-19, but they were tested and they were negative. So that was interesting. They never had symptoms, but they have antibodies, so that means they had it at some point. They were close contacts, but again, were negative. They were people who were never tested because we didn't have that much testing going on, and they had to obviously prioritize. So they thought they had it, the doctors thought, but because they weren't that bad, they were never tested. They've got antibodies. I think there was a cruise ship that some Bermudians went on, like prior to getting locked down, and it basically became a COVID-19 cruise.
I heard about that.
Yeah, we have Bermudians on that. So there were some people that were on that that also had antibodies but didn't ever really have symptoms. So it was picking up the right people, which was interesting and good for us. And so what I will say is that we actually did a verification on it like mid-April, and then I think Australia 2 weeks later approved it in their country, and we said, okay, they've approved it, we're gonna go for it as well. And then a month later, you guys approved it. Yeah. So we were a little bit ahead of you.
Yeah, well, it doesn't take
Bermuda versus America. You can probably tell.
I was gonna say it doesn't take much to be ahead of the U.S. in this. The U.S. is tanking in this in so many ways.
Oh boy!
And we can get into that, but there's so many good questions that are on topic right now. I want to make sure we don't lose too many of those.
No, let's stay focused.
Yeah.
All right. So I haven't read about not likely to show symptoms. I've heard that they are less likely to get it. In terms of COVID-19, which kind of sucks because my dad is O and I'm not, because my mom isn't O. So I'm not O, so I'm like, great. But I have heard that. So I don't have all the data on it, but I did see that. So out of the strains of flu tested in vaccines, was COVID ever one used? Hope that makes sense what I'm asking. It seems like a stronger strain of flu. Okay, so the flu, so influenza, which is the flu that you're talking about, is a different family altogether to COVID-19 or coronaviruses, right? So they shouldn't have used it in vaccines, but again, I wasn't there when they made them, so I don't know. But I don't think so. Like that, scientifically, they should have done that. That wouldn't be ethical to put a virus that's not for that particular vaccine inside. So I would say no. Is it true that COVID-19 is less likely to transmit in warm weather? I have seen that. I think as of today, I saw that they're saying, they've done some testing in the lab. I haven't read the paper yet, but that apparently the warm weather is supposed to make it less likely, and that might be why in places like Bermuda or in Africa, why it isn't as bad.
Did we ever cover this? I know I put it up there before.
No, I remember. So I wouldn't say in different cities. I think that's probably a bit overkill, but there are different strains of the virus in different countries. But what I will say is that just like, how can I put it? Okay, just like how nothing is perfect, when a virus or any DNA replication or any type of function like that happens, it's never 100% accurate. So just the mere fact, if it goes from one person to another and the virus is multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, there will be mutations that just happen out of the pure fact that it's not accurate. And so there are various strains across the world, and that's why sequencing of the virus is important, but not in each city. I wouldn't say that much. There's been some research about the gut microbiome and the severity of the virus. What are your thoughts about it? I haven't seen anything about gut microbiome with this virus, but the microbiome in the body in general is very, very important and very interesting. So I would be maybe it's just, we put the link. That'd be awesome. I can look at that. I haven't seen any of that yet.
If she can put the link in the comments, I can put it on the screen. Let's see. There's a few other things here.
Can you make the connection between the malaria medicines they've been using in some African countries to cure or treat COVID? Right. Okay. So I'll talk about this as well, because when I went to this is my friend. Yes. Yeah. Shout out. When I went to Nigeria, because part of going, I have to take anti-malaria. My mom will not let me go. She's like, have you got your anti-malarials? Make sure you're taking it every day. So I had a bunch of anti-malarials with me when I went. And when I was there, that's when they said, it could actually help because some anti-malaria drugs, now malaria isn't a virus, it's a parasite. So it's totally different. But some anti-malarials have previously shown antiviral properties. So it could potentially kill viruses as well. And so that's why the particular one, I can't remember the brand right now, but that's why it was kind of like a big hype back in March. It would take anti-malaria. So my mom actually was like, just take it just to be sure before I flew to Bermuda. So I was on anti-malarials when I came, and then found out the brand I was using didn't have any use in fighting viruses. So in years,
so just to be clear, so it was a theory, but it turned out not to be.
No, not a theory. It's actually scientific. There are some anti-malaria, some versions of, brands of anti-malarials that are also, because malaria is not a virus. The malaria is caused by a parasite. So that's like a different microorganism altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Viruses, bacteria, parasite, fungus, they're all different types. So malaria, an anti-malarial drug, kills the parasite that causes malaria. COVID-19 is a virus that can't exist on its own. It needs to be in a host in order to create and replicate. Totally different. But some of these anti-malarials also previously, when they were, showing how they work, were shown already to have antiviral properties. So it could also kill some viruses. So that's why. It depends on the brand that you had. And the one that I had didn't fit that category, but I didn't know that until I looked into it.
Yeah, still science. That's still science.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure it isn't one of those things where people should go out and start buying and taking anti-malarials.
No, do not do that. I would not suggest that. But it is shown that it is an antiviral, and I think they were trying to do like a study on it to see if it was actually going to help with COVID-19. All right, in years, could the virus change genetically and turn more aggressive? Could we get a second pandemic? So it's already doing that. The virus is already changing genetically. It's not happening in years. Just by the pure fact that it's gone through so many people. Like, if you can imagine, if we stick to the story we've been told, that it started in China and it's now spread in different countries all over the world, and it's been passed from person to person to person to person. Every time it goes into a new person, and even in the same person, because it has to keep making more copies of itself, every time it does that, there's a chance, a probability that it will mutate.
Oh, yeah.
That's just because it's not 100% accurate every time it makes a copy. And so, yeah, it's doing that right now. And that's why it's important for us to sequence or get the code of the virus that's in the positive cases, because then we can try to keep track of where the virus is going and how it's changing. Now, as far as it changing into a more like dangerous strain,
aggressive, I think.
More aggressive strain. I think it's similar if you think about the logic as cancer, where even now in us humans, every time our cells are making new cells, there is also mutations. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get cancer. Cancer is actually a buildup of mutations in the right places, strategic places, that then causes the cell to then go haywire. And I'll just say my research was in cancer, so that's why I jumped into that analogy. So for the virus, it has to have a mutation in a not a logical place, in a strategic place. So in a place that's actually going to change how it behaves. Mm-hmm. And for that particular mutation to happen, obviously it has a certain probability to it. So it is possible, but I don't know if it will happen tomorrow or next week. We just don't know. Any relevance to vitamins? There's some talk of vitamin D. Okay. Anytime we're talking about any type of disease, I don't care what it is, your body already has a defense. It's called your immune system, right? Any vitamin, all of them, that helps your immune system, you should be making sure you have it, because that's the real difference between symptomatic and asymptomatic. So A just means no symptoms, right? Now, if you think about it, I'll take fever, for example, where your body is heating up. That is a symptom, and that's a side effect of the fact that your body wasn't able to get rid of the virus via the immune system. It's now saying, hey, can we have some backup over here? We need to just heat this thing up, because what we tried to do didn't work, right? And so symptoms is literally a byproduct that your immune system wasn't able to handle it. So if your immune system is good enough, you won't have symptoms. So yeah, vitamins, good. Is it true that COVID-19 is less likely to transmit in warm weather? No, I have seen that. Like I said, that's something recent that I've just seen an actual study done on. And I can say that when we do the extraction process, where we burst open the virus, which kills it, if you heat it to 56 degrees Celsius, the virus will bust open and will die. So if you I don't think anywhere in the world is 56 degrees, I hope, outside. But the warmer you get, obviously, the closer you get to that temperature. Could mutation be why there's a recent increase in severity for people in their 20s and 30s? Could be, or it could be because they thought they were like invincible and just their behaviors have changed. And I think that's probably more likely what it is, that, you know, people now have gotten a bit complacent and relaxed and, hasn't hit me yet. Okay, but it can still reach you. So I don't know in which location you were mentioning, but I know in Bermuda, we're about to go into phase 4 soon. And I think people are just getting like, okay, well, we've made it through. We've only had 9 deaths here. And I say only, but for 65,000 is quite a lot in terms of the ratio. But we haven't had a death for a while. And I think, you know, people are just getting like, oh, well, it's not that bad. So the behavior changed. And I think that's probably more of a behavioral change.
So, I mean, before we get into more questions, and especially because a lot of the questions are trending towards vaccines and behaviors, things that we should do, shouldn't do, etc. Before we segue into that, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about specifically about COVID-19?
Not off the top of my head, but I would just definitely say to anyone who is not sure if they should get tested. It's better to know. I know in Bermuda, we have pop-up testing sites all over the country now, and to just hear someone sigh of relief when they realize they're negative it's good. So just make sure you get tested if you can. Yeah, sorry, this is the fact that I even Bermuda folk, in Bermuda we use Fahrenheit, but because I've lived in England for the last 12 years, I'm on Celsius, so yeah.
Okay, so you were saying get tested. Sorry for distracting you by throwing that up there.
Yeah, get tested if you can, if you're able to, and it's not something that will inconvenience you. It's just best to get tested, just to have that peace of mind. Bearing in mind that if you're negative today, it doesn't mean you're not going to be negative tomorrow, but at least you know where you stand today.
And so if you get tested today and you test positive, what do you do?
Oh, okay. So that would definitely depend on where you are. But I know in Bermuda, what happens is when we get results, we actually report to the Ministry of Health. So I report directly to them all results. If it's negative, what we have in Bermuda is everyone who has signed up, they actually self-refer online. They make a booking online and come and get tested. They get emailed their negative result. If you're positive, it goes to the Ministry of Health and your doctor. Your doctor calls you and you have to go on an immediate 14-day quarantine. So if that's not being enforced where you are, I would definitely say go on a 14-day quarantine, like isolate yourself. You don't want to be spreading that to anyone else. Just as a common courtesy to the public, keep yourself to yourself for 14 days. I would recommend, it depends on what type of work you do. I'm an essential worker, and so because I'm already around samples all the time, I actually get tested every 2 weeks. I think I'm due for another one about this weekend, my number 6. But if you're not necessarily interacting with people that much, I wouldn't say to subject yourself to that, but maybe once every month just to be sure. But with the saliva test, which we're trying to roll out, then you can do it probably more often, and that would be better.
So,
Dan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the question I wanted you to put up. What is the end game? I'm glad. See, we're on the same. All right, brother. Yeah.
First of all, I definitely want to say that Endgame was an awesome movie.
I don't know if you saw. I didn't throw the comment on the screen because I didn't want to distract you. But somebody already has compared you to Suri, in this.
Really?
Yeah. So when this is done, you'll have to go and read all the comments. I just knew better than to throw any on the screen. That you're a little ADD with when I put it up there. So
yeah. Okay, what do I think the end game for COVID-19 is? What type of angle to come from? That's the question. Like, are you talking about a health end game, a financial end game, a political end game? Because there's a lot going on. Like, COVID-19 has become like, I don't know if you probably don't have this in the US, but in Bermuda, if you mix all the drinks together, like all the different sodas, like strawberry, orange, grape, root beer, all of that, it's called Around the World. Right?
Never heard of that.
Gotta try it. Gotta try it. It tastes nice. That is what COVID-19 is, because it's got financial gain for some, political gain, social gain, health, like it's just a lot going on. So I think that question is like, I could be here all night talking about that. End game COVID-19. I mean, it would be nice if it just became something that wasn't like so detrimental to stopping the whole society. But I honestly can't call it right now, because 3 months ago, what was this? Yeah, I was in my room in October. I just gotten back to England from Nigeria, chilling. So I can't even tell you what the end game is. I have no idea. And I think if I try to have an idea, it's just gonna not happen. So I just don't even bother.
So with it right now.
Right, exactly. It's just a day by day basis right now. Yeah.
So if I think that question kind of does take us into the next natural topics, which is if we want to reduce COVID-19 around the world as much as possible, what do we need to do? So
I think, okay, we in Bermuda had a lockdown for 4 weeks, and around this is from my Bermudians, yes. We called that soda suicide. What? No, that sounds so bad. Round the world sounds bad. We had a lockdown for 4 weeks, and you saw, in my opinion, a drastic reduction in the spread. The issue is that you can't like be on eternal lockdown, right? And so the thing is, you need to obviously limit your interaction with people, but if you do, just wear a mask, and use hand sanitizer. Just because, okay, I'll say this. You cannot get COVID-19 from someone who doesn't have COVID-19. If you don't have it and I don't have it and we're around each other, we can't give it to each other. So, I mean, to answer that other question, that would be the end game. To just get to a point where no one has it. That would be awesome. And they don't have to worry about it anymore. But when we get there, that's the question. To try and bring it down, it's about really just being very vigilant with yourself, to just say, do I need to interact with this person? If I don't, just don't. Because at this point, we just don't know who has it. And that's where testing comes in. Because if you're now testing on a regular basis and screening everyone, then you should be able to catch something and then easily isolate that person, take them out the public, and just keep screening and screening. And I think really the difference we've seen in different country responses around the world with how they've handled COVID-19 has been their testing policy. That's literally been the defining moment for these countries, is how quickly and how widely did they test. So I think that, to me, that's the only way we're going to do it, because you don't know who to isolate if you haven't tested them.
Sure.
So, now, contrary to what your leader said the other day, if I recall.
Don't. Yeah, we don't have to talk about him if you don't want to. I don't think
we have to do that. But yeah, I just thought that was
we don't go there usually.
Yeah, I mean, you can if you want to, but we don't hang on his every word. So it sounds like if everybody would get tested and then everybody would isolate themselves if they tested positive, we would I'm not gonna say get rid of it, but we would drastically reduce the amount of cases.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea. The reason why the UK and the US in this instance, I'll talk about because I've been following them. The reason why they didn't manage as well is because when people now came as positive, like they were only testing symptomatic people. The issue is that symptomatic people aren't the only ones spreading the virus. So it's different from Ebola, where, like I said before, you literally have to be symptomatic and like really like sick in order to pass it on to someone. But that's not the case with this. You could be fine, completely not even knowing that you had it, and give it to someone else. So that's the issue. If you don't know who has it and you are just basing it off of symptoms, you're missing. And I think what numbers I've seen is like 80% of people that had the virus were asymptomatic. So if you're missing 80% of the people, clearly you're not going to be able to manage that. So if you now test people, even if you don't think you have symptoms, I mean, we've had people, like I mentioned in that first group that I was in at the hotel, we were in quarantine for 14 days. I think we got tested on day 13 and no one had symptoms, but we had like, I think like 5% of the people that came back positive. What?
Out of how many people was that?
It was like 200. So
talking about 10 people. Okay.
Like 12, it was like 12 people.
Yeah, that's not nothing.
That's not nothing, because then they were gonna go out back into the public,
right,
and interact and not know they had it, and like, so it's just, that's literally all it is. It's just a math game, really. Just do the testing, figure out who has it, isolate them, and if we had 10 people, right, and one person has, like, we had a population of 10 people, one person flies in with it and has the virus. If you keep them away from the other 9 until it's gone, then that's it. It's not in the population anymore. That's literally what we need to do. Mm-hmm. It sounds easy, but it's not.
Interestingly enough, and this is just me going on my own little brief tangent, to this day I have no idea where I got it from, because I was socially isolating. I wasn't going anywhere except for the grocery store, the gas station, and work. My work had gone down to 10 people and we were staying 6 feet away, and this is before everybody was doing masks, but I was doing the hand sanitizer and staying to the, I mean, I people ask me all the time, where did you get, because nobody I was in contact with was symptomatic.
Right. And that's the issue, because at the time, at the beginning, and I'll just say that was WHO guidelines, just test symptomatic people. And I guess it's because it was like a limited amount of resources to test. Yeah. So obviously you want to test people who didn't really have it, but that was the issue, because we weren't testing, like I can think already of cases in Bermuda even, where a spouse was asymptomatic and gave it to their other spouse, like a person was asymptomatic and gave it to their spouse, who then was also asymptomatic, and they just never knew that they even had it. Like, so this is what happened. So, I mean, and then you have even where someone who has it gave it to their spouse, and then that person does get sick. So, because everyone's immune system is different. And it just comes back to that. If your immune system is not strong enough, that's when you get symptoms. Just because you don't have symptoms doesn't mean you don't get the virus.
Yes. And also I was going to say, you keep leaving out Dan Spiffy Neuman, that didn't you have a sinus infection or something?
I did earlier in the year.
I believe that your immune system was weakened when you. That's what I've been thinking about that in my head for a couple of months now. And
I think you cracked the case. I think you cracked it.
Yeah, you were already dealing with infection.
That you're not the first person to think of that, or maybe you are, and we just haven't talked about it until now. But yes, that's definitely. Because one of the things that people always ask, for those who are watching and who don't know, I had COVID-19. I was somebody who was not considered with any risk factors. I had no health issues, nothing that should have made it a serious issue, according to what we knew at the time. Oh, if you're young and healthy, you can't get it. And I ended up hospitalized for a month and intubated for 2 weeks. And they did a number of news stories on me, ABC, CBS, NBC, because I was one of the first young, healthy people with no risk factors to get it serious enough where it looked like I wasn't going to make it. And so one of the things that people kept asking me is, why was it that, that you got so sick and you weren't supposed to? Right. And I mean, we know now that anybody can get it and anybody can get sick and anybody can die from it, but it's still, correct me if I'm wrong, it's still less likely if you don't have risk factors or a compromised immune system or et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And so I was sick earlier that year. I had a sinus infection and an ear infection at the same time. Which one theoretically they thought one spread to the other. They didn't actually go and investigate, because by the time this was in January and February, and so by this point they had closed all the clinics here because they to minimize the risk for COVID-19 spread. I think this was before we had any significant cases in the U.S., but they were taking precautions, and so they never fully got to the bottom of that. But I was taking antibiotics, and that was about a month before I got COVID-19. And so, yes, you can feel free to correct Michael and I if we're wrong, but yes, we do think that one of the reasons why I got so sick was because I'd had infections earlier.
I mean, that sounds like a plausible reason to me. Like Mike said, your immune system was already not as strong, so you were kind of playing on the back foot. That's a cricket analogy. Cricket is one of our sports here in Bermuda. We usually have we are the only country that has a 2-day cricket holiday. Sadly, it has been cancelled because of COVID-19. But yeah, so it's almost like you're on a back foot because you already had your immune system just went through a battle,
right? And
then now another fighter came, another opponent, and just forget it, we're done, So that could be really it, yeah.
So not to take the topic away from me, but I know there've been a number of comments asking about treatments and vaccines. I didn't want to lose this one because this was much earlier in the comment thread. You want to start talking about that at all?
Yeah. So actually, vaccines are also where I'm on the fence. I feel like I know too much sometimes. I mean, not that I'm super smart or anything, but just knowing the science behind how things work.
Sure.
So obviously a vaccine is supposed to give you the disease, but in a weakened version, so that your body elicits what we call an active immune response. So your body actually goes through all the motions as if you are sick, so that you now have the antibodies to then fight it if you actually get it. That's the basic underlying principle of a vaccine, right? Now that's as opposed to, for example, you have passive immunity, which is like if a baby drinks their mother's breast milk and they have antibodies. Now the baby has it, but it's not theirs, so their body will destroy it after a while, right? That's the opposite to a vaccine. Now, the issue is that with some vaccines, because everyone's immune system is different, the term weakened is subjective. Now, it could be weak to you, but it could be enough for me to actually make me sick, for real. And so that's an issue. And then also you have all the other things that go inside of the vaccine to stabilize it and to kind of go with the weakened virus or whatever it is that you're being vaccinated against. And those are now causing concern. And you have obviously the anti-vaxxers, which is a movement going on. So personally, I would not be first in line to get a vaccine. I think I would probably have the approach of whenever something new comes from Apple and just let it happen first, see how it goes, and then jump in line. I've never really been the first to just jump in something new, just to see how it is. So if I was you, Libby, that's what I would do. I mean, I am you. We're all in this together, right? So I wouldn't be first in line to get any type of vaccine. I know that there are trials, and there's one, a really big one going on at Oxford as well at the moment. But again, it's also, you have to also think, I mean, and this is just a general comment about medicine in general, that it's a business. So it's all about money, ultimately. And so is it always patient-centered? Is it always for the betterment of the patient? Not always. Hence why, you have people on drugs that they have to take for every day for the rest of their life. They are now a lifelong customer. So yeah, sometimes I look at it from that angle. But yeah, I definitely will not be first in line for a vaccine, even if I'm the one testing still. I would just rather be tested, to be very honest. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on the vaccine. But that's not to say that vaccines don't work. They obviously work, but especially with us, I think with us not knowing enough about this particular virus, like I just don't think I would be first in line. I don't.
So, but here's my follow-up question. Some people will have to be first in line. I mean, there's no way to, I mean, you're clearly not against vaccines. You're just skeptical of them being, of being in the initial run.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with that?
I don't know how I know in the UK, for example, they are paid. There are people that are paid to, like, they volunteer, and then they are paid to be involved in these studies to then show if it works or not. Now, I have heard, I haven't verified, but I have heard that sometimes things don't go as they should. But I don't have any evidence of that. But I've heard that some people do not make it through these things. But it's something that people do volunteer for and do get compensated. So there is money to be made. And then you have the discussion about, is that even right? Because if someone is struggling financially, they're obviously going to be more inclined to just volunteer themselves to be used just to get the money, and not necessarily considering all the benefits or disadvantages or health risks that they're getting themselves into. But I'm not sure how the trials are doing on in other countries. But I do know in the UK that they are paid. So they are volunteers. I mean, they have obviously considered the risk, and they think it's not too bad, and they've said yes.
So I guess what I mean to say is, who should volunteer? Like, because again, some people are going to have to obviously be part of these trials in order for the vaccine to work, and some people are going to have to be in the first run of people to accept it. Should it be a matter of age or how certain health risks, or I
don't know. I mean, personally, I think that what might make, because you get into this area now, is like, well, who's more of a, what should I say? Who's less valuable? Like, I kind of feel like you're putting value to people now because, okay, if you try this thing and it doesn't work.
I guess my question isn't who's less valuable.
I mean, like, in terms of like people testing, like, it's like, okay, well, do you then say, okay, all healthy people come and get it, and then they get sick, and then what? It's like, okay. I mean, there's just some people that would volunteer for stuff like that. But again, like I said, you then get into this kind of dark gray area when you start to put money to it, because then you get people who need the money just doing it.
Yeah, money darkens everything.
Exactly. So it's like, but then you think, okay, well, should they just be doing this for free? So it's kind of like both sides of the coin. But yeah, I don't think I can probably even I don't have an opinion on that really, of who should jump in there. Into the front of the line. It just won't be me. That's all I do.
I don't think they're going to have a shortage of people to running for it.
Right.
There's many people in the world that they're hanging on every word.
Especially if it becomes something that gives you more like rights to travel.
Right.
Because if you say, look, I've been vaccinated, like then you have people signing up for it, 100%.
Did you already answer the question about what's in it? I feel like you did, but
I did, but not like in specific terms, because I don't know all the chemical names on the top of my head. But I could look that up if you wanted.
No.
Or I can reply to that comment. That's what I can do.
Okay.
Well, you can
Okay.
Comment later on and give the exact components. Do you believe challenge trials should be used for COVID-19? What's a challenge trial? Is that different from a clinical trial?
I thought you would know. I thought that was a term that you would know. I didn't know either.
I'll tell you one thing. If I don't know something, I'm not going to pretend like I know it. I'm going to ask. That's how I am. So I don't know what a trial is. Maybe
that's why you're a scientist. That's what
right. I don't know.
Yeah.
If they can tell me what a challenge trial is, maybe it's just a different term that I'm not used to. But yeah, if you can specify.
Or is that maybe it's where they give one person the actual drug and they give somebody else a placebo and they see what happens.
Yeah, I've heard of those, but they have a different name. But yeah, I mean, it could be different country terms. So yeah, if you can just say what he means, then
a clinical trial. I think that's
a blind clinical trial.
I learned that on House.
Yeah. So I mean, let's assume that's what they meant. Are you against clinical trials for the vaccine, or do you? I mean, what's?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think they have to happen. Like, it has to be done because we need to know what dosage. Like, there's different stages too, because there's different pieces of information to get from each stage of a clinical trial. So you need to first of all see, does it work in the first place? Then you need to see, does it work at what dose? What's the limit of the dose? How effective is it? What's the lifespan of it? So you need to do all of that, and you need to do it in people because obviously it was going to be used on people. So the scientific method I support of doing a clinical trial. COVID-19 in a way is no different from any other disease. So we do it for all other diseases. Why not for COVID-19? But I think that the difference is that I wouldn't put myself forward for one. Like I just wouldn't, just because I wouldn't want that risk, because we don't know much about it. This is different. This is not like not that we know much about everything or anything else, but this is not something that we are familiar with. Like, this is only a 6-month-old relationship that we're in right now. We don't really know who we're dealing with. So like, I think that's the difference. It's not like, another disease that's been studied for decades and decades, and you're trying to find a new drug and you know what it's targeting, and that's different. This is kind of like, we're just starting to get to know each other. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, let's wait a while.
Right, let's just get to know each other first.
Well, he's trying to clear it up, saying challenge trial.
I didn't understand that either. Yeah,
challenge trial is volunteering to be infected. Okay,
so that's kind of similar to what we said. So I think they could work. And if people will volunteer for it, then they, of course. And I think the one in Oxford was asking for people for that reason. So yeah, I think that they should be done because we need to figure out how to use it. We can't just like create something and then say, here we go. Like, we have to figure out all the parameters around administering such a vaccine. Yeah, I do support that.
So one more follow-up question, and then I want to get to some of these other questions because we're almost out of time, unless you want to go longer.
My dinner arrived.
Yeah, Michael's going to be out at 9 o'clock no matter what.
So 2 hours on that live clock.
Well, we start a few minutes early, so it's got to be 2:05. But
okay, do your follow-up question, and then we need to move to voting.
To what? To what?
Voting. Dan Newman, voting. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Voting.
That's a complete topic shift. I wasn't expecting that. Okay.
We need to deal with it. Give me the real question.
Okay. So my follow-up question is: so they create the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
We do the trials,
right?
Which we go through the first round of the vaccine, which you are, skeptical of, and then we get into the middle of the vaccine. In which case, now after that point, you take it, I take it. Is that if that all of that goes according to that timetable, does that make COVID-19 necessarily a thing of the past?
It should, because you would hope that once it's going through the all the trials and everything's figured out, that it's figured out, okay, this should work for the masses if you give them this dosage at this rate at this time. It should be like the flu or like measles, where you get vaccinated and you never, like I've never had chickenpox. I got the vaccine, but I never got chickenpox. Thank goodness, because I've seen what it does to people.
I had it.
I've never had it, and I never should get it, because that's how that particular organism works, the one that causes chickenpox, right? So it should be the case, but again, because viruses are very much rapidly mutating, right? And this is also the case with RNA viruses as well. I mean, DNA as well, but RNA viruses are not as nice as well, because you have to, like I said before, convert the RNA to DNA. That's an extra step that also can introduce error. So it's like the more error, the more steps you do, the more error, the more mutation. And so it should be a thing of the past, but the thing is now we need to stay on top of which strain we have, and if it's still, the vaccine is still relevant for that. But the hope would be that we get a vaccine, everyone just gets vaccinated, and we don't have to then be doing all of this extra social distancing, mask, and all of that type of stuff.
Okay. Do you have, as a scientist, do you have a projection of when that'll be?
I have no idea. If I was probably in Oxford, I probably would, because that would be more about, I would be around in the environment. But being here in Bermuda, like I'm literally, all I dream about is testing and making sure people get their emails and making sure that that's all I do with, really. So at this point, no, I have no idea of when that would be. But I think the last I heard, it was supposed to be by the end of the year. So we'll see.
So we're almost out of time. I want to make sure we get to what Michael has, and I'll make sure we touch on a few music questions if there are any afterwards. If you feel like,
talk about no music.
Okay, Michael doesn't want to talk about any music today.
Ain't nobody asking about it anyway.
Okay.
We need to get back to Black Trauma, man. What's going on with my people?
Okay.
What's happening with all these broken machines and whatnot, and changing like the voter registration, changing the place where you can go to vote and all that.
Now, one thing I have seen is House of Cards, and I don't think they make that stuff up. Mm-hmm.
Well, we talked about earlier today in Kentucky right now, they have closed all but one of the voting precincts in, I think, the largest Black voting district in all of Kentucky. Yeah. And this is an important primary, because this is the primary where they're running to defeat Mitch McConnell. And I don't think Dr. Weldon, I don't know if you're familiar with U.S. politics, but Mitch McConnell is just about evil incarnate. Like, he's the puppet behind the thing. He's the person pulling the Wizard of Oz strings behind everything that Trump and others are doing. That they might be outwardly the appearance of evil, but he's just as bad, if not worse, behind the scenes.
Right. And this same scenario, like I brought up House of Cards, happened in House of Cards. Like, that was literally what they said. Instill fear. Did you see that episode?
I haven't seen all of House of Cards.
You need to instill fear. And I think they had said it was a terrorist attack for that episode. But it was like, people were scared. They had like the police out. They did all this stuff. And it was literally so that particular voting would become invalid, so that they could do it again. That's literally what happened in the show. And you can't tell me that's not like happening in real life. Now, I know these people write like real life. Right in your face.
Yes, a lot of entertainment is predicated on truth.
Right. So I think it is. I mean, it's crazy. Like, our country in Bermuda is 65,000 people. If I can't even imagine trying to get 65,000, like all of Bermuda, to one place to vote. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, and this is 10 times more. Yeah.
I mean, what I wanted, Dan, if you noticed in your email earlier,
I did.
I sent you a screenshot of the how-to Register to vote.
I'm gonna see if I can put it on the screen.
Okay,
I'm slightly I'm slightly better than you when it comes to this technology stuff.
I'll take over.
Go ahead.
I'll take over right now because I'm concerned about my people. My people
Absolutely.
think voting doesn't count. And the bottom line is, when you see something like this, you know how much it really does. You know what I mean? They wouldn't try to hold you back if it didn't mean something. Voter suppression is the only real proof we have that your vote really does count.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the only way we've been able to tell. Other than that, who knows? If they didn't try to stop you, you wouldn't know how important your vote really is. So I'm imploring everybody, Black, white, Puerto Rican, Bermudian, English. Y'all can't vote, but my goodness, yeah, it's just I fear that my people have lost hope in the vote.
Yeah,
and they try to stop you. That's evidence. Your vote means something. Get out there and vote. If you don't like who's in the office, go to the ballot box.
Don't pick them.
Yeah, can you see all those yeah. Kyle Lutz was hi Kyle. Kyle was kind enough to copy and paste it from Brian Erb. So I saw that and I was like, ooh, we need to make sure to encourage our people to vote. Dan?
Oh, have you and I talked about my theories about voter suppression before?
No, we have not, but we can spend a couple minutes right now.
I think that and whether you want to attribute it to white people or Republicans or something more specific than that, I think they are trying to
talk about the same people. White people or Republicans?
I think they are trying to stem off 2043. I think they're trying to do as much voter suppression as possible to make sure that Black, brown, LGBTQ, anybody that doesn't fit the white power structure doesn't have a vote by the time we get to 2043. Because if all other things were equal, and white people become the minority, then the days are numbered for the Mitch McConnell types and for the, so on and so forth. And so I think they see that coming, and they're making all these last ditch desperate efforts to, now that we know that white people are going to become the minority in the US. So what can we do to make sure that they still are the majority in the voting booths and and with the dollars and with business decisions and with everything that actually will allow the people that are in power currently to stay in power.
Sure, but what I'm surprised at is that this is like amateur hour. Just sending some faulty machines or, like this is for a government so powerful, you'd think they could come up with something better than that.
But it's working, so why do they need to? I mean,
but it's so transparent. I guess they don't care what we
don't. It's just, the transparency is almost a plus for them at this point. Trump ran on the most transparent racist platform that he possibly could. And people were like, yes, horribleness, the most horrible thing we could think of. Let's go for it.
Yes.
So I think they've realized they don't have to hide it. They don't have to do the House of Cards behind the scenes thing because the people, they're doing it out in front instead.
They're letting you know we don't want you to vote.
I mean, could it be any more blatant than this example in Kentucky? I mean, could it be any? They're claiming they've closed all of these polling places because of COVID-19, but it's not going to help the spread of COVID. Well, it is going to help the spread of COVID-19. Exactly.
Well,
because not everybody got to go to one place. Like you would think they should have a voting machine.
We lost her again.
No, where'd you go, Dr. Carika?
See, it's there.
When we start really revving it up, they try to take her out the situation.
They sure do. They sure
My
do.
Goodness, this is a form of censorship. How they knock her off, bump her off the feed?
She'll be back. Add the stream. There she is.
I think I know what's wrong. I think it kicks me out every hour. I've just realized.
Okay.
Could be. It's right on the. Go ahead, Michael.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask Dr. Carika if she was familiar with the Black author James Baldwin.
I am. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't read any of his books, but I have seen movies that are based off of what he has written. And he's in his picture. I could recognize his face. I thought he was very instrumental.
Yes, there's a speech he gave at Oxford University that you can find it on YouTube, but it's him addressing this room of mostly white scholars, and he was just telling the truth. And there's a moment at the end of his speech where they start giving him a standing ovation, and he looks overwhelmed, like it really is a poignant moment. And I was like, wow, Oxford University must be pretty cool, to have someone that progressive back in the 60s come through. And I mean, he told them the truth just like he would tell anybody. And all those Englishmen got up, here. Oh, we lost her again. I
don't know where she's disappearing on us.
Okay, well, I made my point as far as the voter suppression and whatnot. I want to make sure people get out and vote, man. I want to see some of these officers get arrested, get taken in. Also, what's going on with Breonna Taylor? Where them dudes at? Haul them in. It's time, man.
Did you see the? Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
No, you got it.
Did you see the post I put on Facebook? It might have been yesterday. That the reason why Breonna Taylor's murderers are not being arrested is because the system worked exactly how it was supposed to work, and she's considered collateral damage, and they're fine with it.
Yeah, they're playing.
And it would have been the same in many of these other cases if there weren't video or there weren't the right, but I mean, they literally see, and I'll say us because it's civilians, but especially if it's black civilians, as collateral damage to them doing whatever. She disappeared off the feed, came back, and now we're talking about something completely different.
That's okay. The doctor, she's just trying to, she's just hanging out at this point. You've given a lecture today, Dr. Carika.
Yes.
Go ahead, say it, Dan.
No, that was my point, is that unless we can somehow hold them to the fire and force them to make these arrests, they're not going to do it because it goes against the way the system is going to work. And it just so I'm a little surprised that they arrested all 4 officers in George Floyd, because they didn't want to arrest they didn't want to arrest any of them, but they definitely didn't want to arrest all 4.
But 2 of them are out and walking, and I don't like that either.
But that's the way the system is. That's the way they design the system, and it's us versus them, and and
yeah, it is. It's us versus them. You're right, man. And us is civilians. It's not black. It's
it's
citizens.
Specifically, black, but also, again, if I get on the wrong side of them, they'll see me as the enemy.
All you gotta do is be in the same car with me, and you go catch it.
Well, we've talked about that in the past.
And we can always talk about that. People need to know. But this dude's asking, yeah, that's right. We're running out of time, so I can tell you one good book, Brian, would be White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. That's she's I think she's on the bestseller list now. I mean, she wrote the book a while back, but now it's really blowing up. That's one good book. Wow. I mean, other than that, I've been just going back, man. I've been reading the biography of Malcolm X. I haven't been really focused on many modern writers, but Robert DiAngelo seems to be making some sort of vibration within the white community, explaining, what white fragility is, what systemic racism is. Like, she seems to be, cracking the code. So I'd say start there, Brian.
Am I imagining things, or did Tiffany shout out some other books, some other reading last week?
She most likely did, but you can follow up and put those links in if you want to.
Or go back and just watch last week's episode if you missed it.
Watch last week. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we got how many other episodes? 2?
Yeah, 3. This is the 4th one
out there. So if you haven't been watching, keep get to watching, because we're giving out some very valuable information, and we've had some really great guests. Dr. Carika not being the least of them.
No. I'm hoping she'll pop back in. I don't know if she's gone for good or not. I was going to ask if she wanted to stick around and answer some more of these questions. I know your dinner is on, Michael.
It's 2 hours and 5 minutes now.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave. Well, you can take Brian's comment down so I can actually, see things.
There we go. Yeah. No, she's
back in. Let's give her a proper, I would feel wrong about not giving her a proper send off and saying thank you. She really, she commandeered the entire situation.
Yeah. Well, that's what. Oh, here she comes. Okay.
So articulate, so spot on, so honest about it all. Dr. Carika, we want to thank you.
I'm back. Sorry, my internet was in and out. So
yes,
my phone internet, and this seems to be better.
I got you. We were just going to say thank you so much. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot.
You really, I'm thinking about it now. It's like Dan Spiffy Neuman, what we've also been showing people with this particular show we've been doing is that Black people are everything.
That's true.
Science. Black people are in music. We know about music and sports and all that.
Right.
And we got Black scientists. We got Black authors. We got Black people that can do everything anybody else can. Just get up off of our necks and let us do what we have been put on the planet to do. That's all. We ain't asking for nothing. We ain't asking for handouts. Just get up off us and let us do go as far as our minds and our ambition can take us. Dr. Carika, you are a shining example, girl.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want to say anything?
Well, before Michael leaves, did you have any questions for Michael, Dr. Carika?
I do. No, I do. My dad was like, he played with Prince. That's what he told me.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah. So I think I really just enjoyed having this conversation today. And if you don't mind, I'll probably stalk you tomorrow and just ask you a bunch of questions.
You can get at either of us.
I want to say you guys are really down to earth, and I really enjoyed this conversation today. I've had a lot of interviews locally about COVID-19, and I had to give a presentation to the country actually about how antibodies work and how the antibody tests work, and so I've been doing a lot of this explaining. And I think it's my duty really, because in Bermuda there aren't many scientists like me. There is, and that's why I created the charity, Bermuda Principles Foundation. You can go, I think it's bermudaprinciples.com and see what we do. But that's why I do it, because I want to make sure that I'm not the only one anymore. Because when I was growing up, I didn't even know this part of science existed. I was good at science and math, and I wanted to then be a medical doctor. I thought that was my option. I didn't know about all this other stuff in the background. And I think COVID-19 for Bermuda anyway, and I think in other countries, has really shone a light on scientists. Medicine obviously already had that kind of platform, but the scientists who's doing the testing, now we kind of have a platform, and I think I'm really humbled by it, and I really enjoyed my conversation with you guys today.
Well, that's fantastic.
So let me ask you a question, Dr. Carika. There have been a lot of great questions in the comments that we didn't get a chance to get to. Do you want to answer them in the comments, or do you want to stay on a little longer and answer them on the air?
So I can answer them on the air if that helps. I don't have anything else to do. Today was a good day. We had results are out. I don't have anyone pending, so I'm good. Yeah, and I think my internet seems to be better now. And also, I don't know if I can see all the comments, because when I looked earlier, I didn't see a lot of them. I don't know if I have to be friends of someone to see them on the live. I'm not sure. So I'm happy to jump in. And
well, how many are there, Dan?
Oh, there's quite a few. So I know you gotta get going, Michael, and that's okay.
If it's gonna be more than 2 or 3, I'm gonna.
Well, we'll say goodbye to you now, Michael. And if you want to stick around and disappear when you feel like disappearing, that's like I said, who knows how long it's going to take or how long she wants. I'm going to have to go dip to the bathroom while she answers her first question, anyways.
Isn't this your potty break?
Man, and I'm blaming it on the COVID-19, but yeah, I can't go that long without a bathroom break. So we'll keep going through them, and Michael will disappear when he feels like, or you can go and have your dinner and come back and leave it open, whatever you want to do, Michael.
Well, I'm going to stop the camera and mute the mic for now, and if I come back and you're still there, then we'll deal with it then. But I'll most likely, I'm gone. Just consider me gone.
Okay.
We'll re-up. Dr. Carika, hopefully we'll have you if the show lasts long enough to have you back.
I'll be here.
All right. Well, God bless you.
Love you, Michael. So there. Let me pull up a question, and I'm going to run to the bathroom. I'm trying to put your webpage on there too. I'm not Mr. Technology here. The question I'm looking for was about masks. I'm looking for it. Somebody wanted to know specifically what kind of masks to wear. That's the gist of it, but I'm trying to put it, actually put it on the screen. If you want to just start talking while I look for it. Here we go. There we go.
I know we have to wear masks. My question is, what type of mask is suitable to wear? So I know that, and this is more outside of my kind of realm. I'm obviously more on the science part of it, but this is also important. The masks that medical people normally wear in surgery, or the ones that have the blue, light blue and the dark blue, that seems to be a very common one that people do wear. But I know at the moment, because there is a shortage of masks all over the world, because everybody all of a sudden now needs one, that there are alternatives, and cloth masks are an alternative. So you can make a mask. I've seen some videos where people have taken like socks and transformed that into a mask. I know we have a few like local designers who have made their own versions of masks. Those are actually, in my opinion, a bit better, because then you can leave the surgical mask for those who actually need them, which are your healthcare professionals. And so that's really the strategy in Bermuda was, okay, we want all of our essential workers and healthcare workers and frontline workers to have the proper mask. And so the rest of the public to then make their own cloth mask, so that you're still protected, but then we have the right ones for the professionals that need it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Real quick, I'm going to try to put your webpage up on the screen. Okay. Did that work?
Yeah. Yep. There we go. Bermuda Principles Foundation. Just briefly, so this is a bit of history. Bermuda Principles is actually linked to genetics as well. And so during the 1990s, early 1990s, you started the Human Genome Project, which was a global collaborative effort to sequence or figure out the genetic code of humans for the first time. And in a similar way, I say the way the science community has come together now for COVID-19 mimics in a way the same way they came together then, because it was like we all will benefit from this. And so they started to, in different labs around the world, work on different parts of the human, what we call genome, which is the full body of genes. And what they realized after a point is that they didn't know who was going to own it. Does the lab own their part? Like, does all of them own it? Is it not going to be owned by anyone? And so they came to Bermuda in 1996, the top labs and the people who were in charge across the world.
I'm trying to figure out how to put just you on the screen.
Oh, that's and yeah. They decided to actually put it into the public domain, let it be owned by no one, so not patenting it. And they then decided on that agreement and called that the Bermuda Principles. And so I found that out not long after I had finished my PhD, and was like, this is crazy. Like, this happened in Bermuda. We had Nobel Prize laureates here made this very important decision. They named it after us. And so I then formed the charity to then do science outreach in Bermuda, mainly on genetics.
So other than your webpage, the Bermuda Principles Foundation I just put up there, and I'm going to put the actual web address up on a comment. Is there anywhere, if people are interested in following you after hearing this discussion, where should they go to get more information from you?
So I am on Facebook. My name is, I think my name that's on the screen. So that's for Facebook. On Twitter, I am at Carika L. Shea. That's my middle name. So that's my handle. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm on LinkedIn, I think, as well. But yeah, I'm pretty much on everything other than Snapchat. I haven't been converted to that. I haven't figured out either. So yeah, I just left that. But yeah, I'm pretty accessible. If people have questions, I tend to answer them. I try my best anyway. I've gotten a lot of Facebook DM questions. My DMs have definitely drastically changed in the last 2 months. More people just asking questions about COVID-19, and so I try to get back to them. So if anyone does have any questions that they can think of later, or you have them now and you want to make sure I don't miss it, you can send me a DM on Facebook and I should be able to get it, and I can reply to you with an appropriate answer.
So real quick, to anybody that's sticking around and listening with us, I just discovered that I can't go back to any questions before like 8:05 p.m. So if you asked your question in the first half of the broadcast and it didn't get answered already, post it again. There were some questions that I was saving because I didn't want to try to jump all over the place, but now I can't find them. So if your question didn't get answered in the first half of the broadcast, go ahead and put it in the comments again. I'm going to go through. Do you care if I jump around and just go in the order that they were asked, or as opposed to trying to make sense topic wise?
Yeah, that's fine.
So let me, I think we covered this one, but I'm going to throw it up there anyways. How often do you recommend we get tested? You said every 2 weeks, correct?
I'd say if you're a central worker, every 2 weeks, because the incubation time of the virus is 2 weeks. And so if you've been exposed to any of it, you should then be tested in that time period. What are your recommendations for prevention measures we could take? Just like in the US, we have a large at-risk population here in Bermuda. Can you speak more about strengthening the immune response? So I think really when it comes to the vulnerable population or at-risk population, it's about keeping them isolated. Like, we don't need to take any risk with trying to see if they can handle it or not. Like, just let's keep them away from any type of exposure. For all of the rest of us, I think the main thing we can do, obviously, is keep your immune system up, and that includes your diet. That includes sleeping. Like, definitely going to get a good night's rest tonight. That includes, like the different vitamins that we talked about, which can come through diet or exposure to the sun and all that. So it's about making sure you are generally healthy and well, and then your immune system will be able to respond correctly. So yeah, we need to follow all the guidelines that have been given to us in Bermuda. But personally, I would say make sure your diet is on point. As we know, fruits and vegetables and not too much processed food. And I know we love our macaroni and cheese and chicken here, which is great. But you also need to have, and I'm speaking to myself because I don't really eat vegetables, but I will.
Eat your vegetables, Carika.
I have broccoli and carrots and cauliflower my mom made. I'm going to have that tonight. I promise.
Vegetables are delicious. So complete tangent, but since we're off the clock and Michael's having his dinner right now and I'm starving, what are the native foods of Bermuda? Like, what do you, as a Bermudian?
So, first of all, we do have some native foods. I'll touch on that. But our main diet is very American. So, like I said, macaroni and cheese, chicken, that's
soul food.
Sorry?
Soul food.
So yeah, exactly. So then you're good. But then you do have, the Bermudian dishes like cassava pie.
What's that?
Cassava is like a root starch, and it's like ground up like flour almost, and then it's used to like make pie. It's almost similar to, have you heard of farine?
No, and I tried a lot of things, but
Similar. Farine pie is awesome. Okay, I'm trying to think of another. I don't know any other like American type versions. Cornbread.
Obviously, I know cornbread.
Right. Okay. Cornbread. I say cassava pie and farine pie, and please don't shoot me in the comments, Bermudians. But I think it's probably in a similar. If we were talking about family tree, to cornbread.
Okay.
Yeah, I would put it there. That's the first thing I can think of. And then you have like our Bermudian Sunday breakfast, which is boiled codfish with boiled potatoes and avocado and bananas and tomato sauce.
So that's kind of similar to Jamaican when you talk about boiled codfish, and that made me think of ackee.
Ackee is, yeah. We don't really eat ackee here much. I think they probably have it, but it's not like a Bermudian thing. And then you have Johnny bread, which is awesome.
Okay. So nice commercial break, but you're making me too hungry. So,
oh God. Okay. What about the reports from doctors in Italy and some in the U.S. that COVID-19 is weakening? Is that a possibility with this virus being a close cousin of SARS and it went away? I saw that as well. I think yesterday or today that they're saying that I think the analogy was like it was a roaring tiger and now it's like a tame cat or something. I think that's what the Italian doctor said. I mean, I need to see the data why they're saying that. I didn't really get into why they said that it was weakening. So I need to look into that, but it is possible. Same way it's possible to strengthen the virus and make it more dangerous via mutations. You can also, with a single mutation or a buildup of mutations, weaken it as well. So it's definitely possible, but I think time will probably tell the better story. Aren't they reusing PPE in the States at testing sites? Could their PPE have a virus on it, and can they spread it to someone? I have no idea, like I said before, what they did in the US, but they should not be doing that. If they are reusing PPE, run. Like, no, do not. Every time we take off PPE, it goes right into a biohazard bag, because you're right, it could obviously have virus on it. The virus shouldn't be able to survive for that long, like maybe a few hours or so on the stuff that we wear, but still you could be contaminating other things and transferring it over. If you're now, where are they storing it? When they're putting it back on, like they could be, no, that shouldn't be happening.
So just so you know, I hope and pray things have gotten better since then, and it certainly hasn't been any news stories on it recently, which could be that it's gotten better, or could be just that it's not being reported on. But right. when COVID-19 first hit the big metropolitan areas in the U.S. like New York, and suddenly the city was underwater, there were a lot of reports of hospitals not having enough PPE, and so doctors were having to treat COVID-19 patients with no protective equipment whatsoever. Yeah. It was some scary stuff happening in the U.S. And again, we kind of alluded to some of the problems with the U.S. and the way that it's been handled here, and it definitely could have been handled better. But it would not surprise me at all to hear that PPE is being reused, simply because there's been a conceded effort in the U.S. to not have enough equipment. There was. So you heard what our esteemed president said the other day, that basically we'll just stop testing and then therefore the whole problem will go away. They were diverting testing equipment and PPE earlier on, specifically diverting it so that it wouldn't go to the areas that it was needed.
That affected Bermuda as well. So when we had ordered stuff from the U.S., there were things like PPE and the VTM, which is the stuff that the swab goes into. They were ordered for Bermuda, and they were stopped in the U.S. Like, they would not export to us in Bermuda. So we had to like bend over backwards and twist and turn and figure out how to get it, because they wouldn't send it to us.
There was one example in the U.S., and now I can't remember what it was. Maybe somebody will put it in the comments, but I'm not actually looking at the current comments because I'm trying to get through all the questions. But there was one example in the U.S. where a governor had to have testing equipment imported from China or wherever and hide it from the federal government, because if he hadn't done that, it would have been confiscated by the Trump administration. And I mean, it could not possibly be a bigger clusterfuck here. There's just no way. You're the scientist. You tell me, is there a way that the U.S. government could have handled this worse?
I don't think so, to be very honest. I think if they just didn't test anyone, maybe, but I mean, I don't know. So the question on the screen, is it plausible for every U.S. citizen to be tested, and would there be enough tests to do so? The fact that the U.S. is actually a manufacturer of most of the stuff we need to do testing, I would have thought that they would have been able to do that, to reach that. If that was their goal, they could have strategically, aimed for that. I don't know numbers, I don't know output, but the companies that are producing the companies that we go to for stuff are manufacturing in America. So it is possible, but then you guys would have to be selfish, and we don't want that. So, I mean, you don't have to test everyone, but it's definitely plausible that they could upscale testing, 100%. If we as a country in Bermuda who make not one thing, not even a half of one of the things you need to do testing, could have everything we need to do testing of our nation, they could figure it out if they're making it from scratch.
So, follow-up question, and getting back to what we were talking about earlier. So I know that earlier we kind of emphasized, you didn't specifically say everybody getting tested, but a lot, theoretically, hyperbolically speaking, everybody getting tested. Mm-hmm. What percentage of the U.S. needs to be tested? Because we're saying everybody, but not everybody. But at what point have enough people been tested? Is it 25%, 50%, 75%?
I think it's different. I mean, I wouldn't be able to give that number. I think really and truly it depends on the outbreak, which the U.S. is all over the place. So, I mean, I know for Bermuda, at this point, we've tested 15% of our population. And that is, some people have been retested as well. And we're confident to know, what position we're at. Obviously, we're able to monitor how many new cases are entering the hospital, who are being hospitalized and all that. And we're obviously a lot smaller, so it's a little bit different to manage. But as far as the percentage in the U.S., I couldn't tell you, to be very honest. I know I can go based on, I probably know more about the U.K. Their goal was to test, I believe, 20,000 a day, which is about, I think 3%. No, that's definitely not right. 0.3%. Yeah. So they are, 0.02%. Sorry. Forgot to take off another zero. 0.03% of their population each day. That's what their goal is. So I don't know. We don't know how long we're going to be doing this for, but I don't know what the U.S. strategy is. Do they have one? They should. They must.
Well, I mean, it depends who you ask, because there's Fauci and the CDC, and then there's the federal government, and then each state and each governor has their own. I can't remember what they call them, but essentially their own health administrator, and there is no unity right now, because right now the federal agency that oversees this is not there's the White House is contradicting them. So so there's, I mean, again, I don't know any other term for it other than that it's a clusterfuck. But I don't, that's a great question. And I will make sure that I find out what specific, I mean, again, we know what the federal government strategy is. Stop testing people, let everybody die who dies. And then eventually we'll all be dead, but it won't matter because Trump will still be in office. I don't know. I don't know, and it's pretty depressing to try to think it through and map out. I guess so. What I was getting at with my question is right now, essentially, your suggestion is that everybody who can get tested, and at what point will that be enough people, or at what point should that no longer be the case in terms of like at what point when do I not need to get tested, basically?
So I think really it comes down to, like, I know in Bermuda, even now when we're getting like a case once a week, we're still like saying, community, please get tested. So I wouldn't know how to answer that. I think it's best to just know for sure. I mean, we're about to open our airport. Obviously, again, like I mentioned before, the only way we got cases was because people flew. And I think that's for the whole world, obviously. But we obviously are very isolated. So we only had one way to enter until we closed our airport. We're about to open it back up. Is it next week? Yeah, next week. So I think people are a bit on edge about that, and so people are now, getting tested and want to be sure that they're okay. But as far as the U.S., I honestly don't even know. I'm just been watching, shaking my head like, what on earth are they doing?
So there was a whole. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What did you say?
No, I was looking at the comment on the screen. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There was a whole sub discussion in the comments about what we talked about earlier about my sinus infection and affecting my ability to contract COVID-19. And this was the most scientific comment that went up there. It's not so much a question, but I thought you could comment on it.
Yeah, I did see that one actually when I ran into the comments earlier. Yeah, automatically not automatically. When you take antibiotics, that's literally what's happening, what he's saying on the screen. And so your immune system is not at full force when you're taking an antibiotic. It's just not. And so in my opinion, it probably may have contributed to you potentially getting COVID-19. But I mean, we just never knew. But I think that's probably a fair comment to make.
And I was at the same time I was taking antibiotics. They also had me taking probiotics, which I was like, won't they cancel? But they had, I was taking antibiotics and probiotics, and they made sure that I ate a lot of probiotic yogurt because apparently the side effects of the antibiotics can be pretty strong.
Right.
So we'll come back to that.
Like the point, the main thing is that wasn't coming from your body. That was a whole bunch of stuff that it was just like foreign, and that throws off your immune system anyway. So, yeah.
We'll come back to that because somebody else had some questions about my particular case, but we'll go to this one first. Did we already do this one?
It was a similar question. I don't know if it's the same person. But yeah, the question was about, can the virus mutate to become less potent, which it definitely can. In terms of the odds of it doing that so quickly, it's really down to probability. Like, it's not like the virus has a brain and it's like deciding where to mutate. So it literally just comes down to the numbers. I'm not sure if it will just mutate away and become like a common cold, but we're just gonna have to wait and see, really. It's a lot of waiting and seeing right now, which I don't like. And I think we as humans just don't like not knowing the answer to stuff. So yeah, I couldn't comment on that. But yeah, it is definitely possible for it to mutate. Just like if the genetic code changes, it can change for the better or for the worse. It's just that the fact that it changed in this particular position. So it really depends on where it is.
So I have a follow-up question to that. So SARS, I'm old enough to remember the whole panic about SARS, which comparatively speaking turned out to be nothing. I'm not saying it was nothing,
right,
but
yeah.
I don't know. I don't personally know anybody that died from SARS. I know many people that have died from COVID-19.
Right.
So given that they're similar as viruses, what is the difference in why one became a worldwide pandemic and one didn't?
That's the question I'm also asking, because I'm confused about the whole thing. Like, in my mind, the virus was known to be where it was. And I mean, I think potentially it could be the fact that the way it transmits in asymptomatic people, that might be the key to it, because the fact that it reached the whole world is literally because people who had it didn't know they had it, got on flights and spread it. That's the bottom line. So it could be that. It could be that, this one we just is less, is not as bad, or is you have more asymptomatic people, and so more people who had it that traveled and gave it to others. Like at this point, we're just speculating because we just don't know. But I think that potentially could be the reason.
So is there a vaccine for SARS?
I believe so, but I could be wrong about that. But as far as I know, there is.
So
actually, let me look that up.
I Googled it briefly, and the answers were the Google results were all above my science brain. So I would like that. I guess that was going to be my next question: is that how soon after the outbreak was the vaccine? But if that's not something that you are,
okay. Apparently, it's an easy point. It is easy to point to the fact that we don't have a licensed vaccine for SARS.
So why did it go away?
I see an article here, the mysterious disappearance of the first SARS virus and why we need a vaccine for the current one, but didn't for the other. Interesting.
Oh, maybe that's something to put up in the comments. Is it from a reputable source, the article? I'm assuming it is if you're reading it.
It's from The Conversation, but looks like it's written by someone at Penn State, who is a virus person. I'll share it.
Oh, I see it. I'm gonna put it in the comments.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, neither of us can speak to the veracity of this article. It looks to be legitimate, but we haven't fact checked it, so but I'm gonna put it up in the comments real quick if my computer will cooperate. And then I'm going to move on to the next comment. So there it is real briefly, if anybody wants to go check that out. Just brief tangent before I go to the next comment, since we're talking about this and we talked about vaccines earlier, do you have anything specifically? Because you expressed some healthy scientific skepticism, but do you have anything to say for the people that are what we call anti-vaxxers?
Well, I can say from a personal level that I have been vaccinated. Like I had all the vaccines I was supposed to, including the HPV vaccine when I was like an early teenager. And obviously I can only speak to my own experience. I haven't yet seen any side effects of that. I know for a fact that vaccines do work. I think that the anti-vaxxer movement, obviously, it needs more transparency. And I think that's why it's happening in the first place. Like just what's inside of these vaccines. Like, why is this in there? Why is that in there? And I think when people are now starting to learn more about that, they're questioning it. Now, the science of a vaccine, I fully supported the logic behind it. I get, and I think it makes sense. If you trigger the immune system without a full-blown infection, you're doing a good job. Obviously, that depends on if having those antibodies will protect you in the future. But I'm just not, with this particular virus, not sure we know enough to then be just giving vaccines out to everyone yet. So that's where my hesitation kind of comes from, not in vaccines in general, although there are some slight concerns. But for this particular one, I definitely want to see a bunch of others kind of go through it and see how they do, as opposed to jumping on the bandwagon first. But I don't know if you saw my comment, but I do have to go in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So if we can have like the last couple of questions, that would be good.
Sure. There's so many. We may have to just come back to this another time.
In the comments, yeah, that's also something I could do. Yeah,
let me see if I can grab. So this was the next one I was going to get up to. Now you haven't specifically studied the effects of the virus on people. You're studying the virus in a lab. So so I'll just briefly touch on that they think that I did, but they don't know for sure. And they x-rayed me and they weren't able to find any, but they are, they're still not sure. And my blood pressure is still abnormally high, which they think could be caused by blood clots, but they haven't been able to find them. But I was going to ask you to weigh in on that if you had any, but that's not what you studied. You studied the.
Yeah, so I'm not really dealing with the clinical side. We're dealing with people. I'm more dealing with the virus itself. That's more what I deal with.
So.
What was that long one you just put up?
I was gonna come back. It looks like they got cut off, so I'll look at that one later because it was long. I was trying to see if I could see the whole thing if I put it on the screen, but it got cut off. Get rid of Mitch McConnell. We can all agree to that. Let's just see here. I'm trying to just find one more good one, and then we can let you escape. Oh man, there's so many in here. Let's go to this. Where did it go? There was another one specifically. Come on. Okay, here's a good one.
If you use a disposable mask, then reuse the same. Oh, definitely not. So, example, you leave a disposable mask in your car to wear every time you get inside the grocery store. Yeah, not a good idea. I mean, the idea of it being disposable is that you should use it once. But I do understand, like, you don't want to just be chucking mask away all the time. And that's why having a cloth one or one that's like not the surgical one, but the one that you have to wash, at least you can just wash it and make sure it's fresh the next time you need it. If you wash it every day or whatever you did go to the store. But using the disposable ones, they need to be chucked away. Like, I mean, I have worn a mask for like 5 minutes and then taken it off and chucked it away. Like, do not keep that in your car for days on end. That's like just asking, if you had the virus, that's just asking for the virus. It's just like, hey, just sit here and just form a colony. Like, don't do that. That's definitely not safe to do.
Well, now I'm convicted because I've been doing that. I've been letting it sit for 24 hours because they said it can't live over 24 hours. So I've got two.
The thing is that we don't know, because tomorrow they will tell you that that's wrong. I saw today a paper in Nature, which is, like I said before, that is a really good journal, saying that in asymptomatic people, so people that don't have symptoms but have the virus, they shed the virus for 19 days compared to symptomatic people who shed the virus for 14 days. I saw that this morning. So the information keeps changing. So I would just, like, to be very honest, I would take anything that's said right now with a pinch of salt. I know that's hard to do, but just take the extra precaution just because you don't want to put yourself at risk. Okay.
So I know you got to go, and thank you so much. Thank you for sticking around answering extra questions, and thank you for hanging out with Michael and myself. Let's just summarize. So get tested. If you're an essential worker, get tested every 2 weeks if you can. If you're not an essential worker, then get tested at least once or...
Yeah, once a month, I would say. I mean, if it's available to you, like I know in Bermuda it's free. So it's just booking online and showing up, and it's not really a hassle. But yeah, if you have that luxury, then I would say take advantage, because it's just best to know. Being tested once, especially in a place where there's an outbreak, is not good enough. You need to keep retesting yourself.
So get tested. Wear your masks, preferably a cloth or reusable non-surgical mask that you can wash.
Yep.
And wear your masks when. Do you recommend anytime you're in public or just when you're going to be within 6 feet of people?
I only wear a mask when I'm around people. Like if I get in the car, I am not driving in my car with a mask on. There's no point. I'm by myself. I'm with me. So if you're now around people, I would say a mask, definitely.
So for me, I've been following the rule that if I'm going to be in a crowd or if I'm going to be within 6 feet of people, then I wear the mask. And if I'm in an area that's more spread out, even if there's other people there, I don't. Is that still a fair, or should it?
That's still fair. It's still fair, but I would say having a mask nearby. You just never know. You know what I realized? I realize now that I'm more sensitive to people being near me. So like I remember when I was flying, where was I going? I think I was flying to Nigeria actually, and it just felt like everyone was like popping out of bed, like it's like someone was always near me. I was like, I got it right. So yeah, I would say even if you are in a place where everyone's spread out, just to have your mask nearby in case you need it.
Keep your immune system boosted.
Eat healthy, sleep well. Yep.
Get the vaccine, but not necessarily right away.
But if you're comfortable, yep.
Anything else that you want to just summarize in terms of,
I think that's pretty much the main things. Don't reuse a surgical mask, and yeah, keep asking questions. Like, don't just. I think another thing that we've realized from COVID-19 is that science is not perfect, and when we don't know something and we're trying to get answers, the answer evolves over time, and because there's so much pressure to have an answer, you have one answer today and it changes next week. People just need to ask questions. What does it mean? Don't just take any article you see and then think it's the truth. Like, look into it. And keep up to date, I would say, as well, as much as you can with what's happening.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. Hopefully, one way or another, we'll get to talk to you again. I know you're super busy right now, but hopefully when things cool down a little bit, you'll pop up in some Facebook discussions and things like that.
Definitely call me back and I'll be here. I really enjoyed today.
Well, I'm glad. We were glad to have you. And when you have time, go and look at all the comments. Like I said, there was a lot of very flattering stuff and a lot of great questions we didn't get to. And we definitely a lot of things have come from today's discussion.
Well, I'm glad.
Thank you again, Dr. Carika Weldon. Next week, I believe our guest next week, I can't remember his name. We have a doctor from Nashville Hospital who specifically studies COVID-19 patients and the effects of racism on Black patients. So that's going to be real interesting.
Oh, wow.
So, and then probably after that, I'm guessing we'll be back to the more political stuff based on what Michael was talking about tonight. It's clear that we can't stay away from that for too long. Yeah. So, well, thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Thank you again, Dr. Carika.
Bye.